Over the last few months, I spent hundreds of hours in Sparking Zero custom battles searching for the hidden gems this game doesn't promote so I can showcase them here with the goal of keeping the game mode alive. Today I've compiled all of the videos we've done so far, so put this on in the background at work, throw it on during your cardio session at the gym, and enjoy. If you have your own custom battles you want shared, please send them over to me or drop them down in the comment section below. Our story begins at the end of the Saiyan saga. After falling to Piccolo's special beam cannon, Raditz finds himself wandering the wastelands of hell. Driven by the sting of his defeat at the hands of his low-class brother, he spends years in isolation sharpening his power. Time stretches on and the memory of Goku lingers in the background of his thoughts. Years pass before another familiar face arrives. Nappa, also wandering the lands after his execution by Vegeta. In typical fashion, Nappa attempts to assert his dominance through his power level, leading to our first matchup. Raditz quickly proves that the old Saiyan hierarchy is dead. His growth in the afterlife has left Nappa completely outclassed. The years of isolation and training have reshaped him. Their clash begins to draw attention. Frieza and King Cold, fresh off their defeat on Earth by the hands of another Saiyan. Frieza is looking for a Saiyan-shaped punching bag to vent his frustrations. Raditz and Nappa don't even recognize him at first, dismissing him as just another soul in hell. It's only after a very brutal exchange that they realize they've traded blows with the former Emperor. But rather than cowering, Raditz finds a new ceiling to shatter. He studies the power Frieza displayed and measures the distance between them. His training continues with a new focus in sight, and the belief settles in that gap can be closed with just enough time. Years pass inside hell and Raditz and Nappa stand before Frieza once more. This time he's not alone. Cell waits at his side, aiding another towering presence to that confrontation. But before that fight can even begin, a massive force crashes into the scene, sending Cell flying. Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan, has arrived in hell, and immediately targets Raditz, sensing the familiar scent of Goku's bloodline. Frieza jumps into the fight halfway through and decides to try his luck. This attempt doesn't last long. Broly's power keeps building as the battle spirals further and further out of control, and the only option left is to try and paralyze him long enough for Nappa to finish things. Nappa begins charging a full power energy beam, preparing to knock Broly out in a single strike, as Frieza tries to paralyze him with his psychokinesis. But Broly moves too fast for Frieza and knocks him aside, sending the former Emperor crashing out of the fight. Raditz flies back in and re-enters the battle, managing to hold Broly off just long enough for the plan to move forward. He holds Broly in place, shouting for Nappa to fire a full-power mouth cannon regardless of who's in the way. The blast connects, subduing the legend while it appears Raditz was vaporized in the crossfire. In the final moments before the episode ends, the camera cuts to Cell. He used instant transmission at the last minute to pull Raditz out of the attack. Now the thematic tie-in here is clever. Not only is it a fun Raditz story, but if you recall the ending of Bio Broly, Goku and Pikkon were dispatched to hell to deal with Broly's rampage. This story fits perfectly into that exact window of time. Beyond that connection, the core idea here is really what stood out to me. Raditz spent years reflecting on his defeat on Earth and used that memory as a motivation to grow stronger. The experience stays with him and shapes the way he approaches every fight afterwards. Seeing Raditz actually learn from a tactical mistake that killed him on Earth is such a great touch. Now, he still isn't necessarily a good person. He likely still harbors a grudge, and the thought of revenge probably hasn't gone anywhere, but the new approach to growth is dangerous. By the end of all of it, the whole scenario feels like a genuine Dragon Ball filler episode, and I mean that in the best way possible. After watching the chaos of Frieza's revival, Dr. Hedo decides to replicate that exact same Dragon Ball ritual with Cell. Initially, the perfect android wants absolutely nothing to do with the new Red Ribbon Army, but Hedo drops an ego-shattering truth on him. At his current level, any of the modern Z warriors could dismantle him in seconds. Disbelieving and furious, Cell demands proof and gets it when the two Gammas effortlessly subdue him. With his perfect pride shattered, he finally agrees to fall in line, and the team vanishes into the shadows. Training along with the Gammas, he spends every day pushed to the absolute brink of exhaustion, actively abusing his Saiyan biology to reap those Zenkai boosts. Meanwhile, Dr. Hedo works behind the scenes, patching up the design flaws Gero overlooked. The final product becomes terrifying force far beyond anything Gero could have envisioned. When Cell finally steps back into the light, Hedo broadcasts a message straight to Capsule Corp. The android awaits a challenger at the ruins of the old Cell Games arena. Goku answers the call and the two stand face to face once again. The original scenario pits you against a standard perfect Cell, but thanks to a mod I swapped him out for a perfect form Cell Max. It just fits the narrative flawlessly. The creator of the battle also loaded up Cell with the custom capsules, making his defense feel unbreakable. If you're looking for a challenge, you found in this one. The choreography mirrors their original clash, but the ferocity gets dialed up to 10. Goku realizes quickly that his standard God-infused Super Saiyan forms fall completely short. The android simply laughs off all the damage Goku's giving him. Eventually, the shockwaves start tearing the Earth apart, forcing Goku into Super Saiyan Blue just to level the playing field. They trade catastrophic blows until Cell gains the upper hand, kicking Goku into a cliffside and leaving his blue aura flickering. Just as the android charges an attack to wipe the planet off the map, the atmosphere shifts. The Saiyan rises to his feet once again, refusing to lose here. Cell is left shocked at Goku's true power as he continues to withstand everything the android throws at him, eventually overpowering him. Recognizing that this monster will never change his ways, Goku charges a swift Kamehameha and erases Cell. closing the book on the perfect being once and for all. I'm a big fan of the core concept and the narrative build up to the match, especially the idea of Hedo opting to refurbish the original cell rather than starting from scratch. Using the Dragon Balls as a shortcut because they've been tracking them through the spy bots is a genius move that fits perfectly with the Red Ribbon Army's MO. But with that being said, I think the execution could just use a bit more time in the oven to really reach its full potential. This next what if stretches across multiple points in the timeline, using the custom battle system to construct what feels like a full arc within the Super era. The amount of care and display is immediately apparent, especially in how the spotlight moves beyond the usual leads. Even characters you wouldn't expect to anchor major moments are given room to develop. The creator has also documented every chapter of this story on their YouTube channel, which I'll make sure to link below. We begin with Goku deep in image training, reflecting on his growth by reliving encounters with the strongest opponent he's faced across his life. Frieza, Cell, Boo, Jiren, and Broly. Each of them represents a moment where the ceiling rose again and again, where the road forward demanded growth. This is presented as a 1 vs 5 gauntlet, pushing Goku through a sequence of battles, all culminating with an ending that mimics the opening of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Gohan arrives to find his father lost in thought. Goku, energized by the training, asks Gohan to spar, and the sky fades as the moment settles on this first point. We swap over to the next part of the story. The rest of the Dragon team feels the ripple of the Tournament of Power and an unspoken pressure to move forward. Yamcha and Tien meet again in the same arena where they once fought as teams. The match unfolds across 2 phases, allowing Yamcha to rediscover his rhythm while acknowledging the gap that still exists between him and Ten Shinhan. Eventually, Tien emerges as the stronger fighter, but Yamcha leaves with the resolve, committed to continuing his path of power. From there, the focus moves to Gohan and his family. Training has become something he weaves into his everyday life now. Pan, a little older, watches in awe as Gohan attempts to follow the same training regime Goku once endured under Whis. Progress comes slowly. Beerus, annoyed of this, steps in, unimpressed as usual, pushing Gohan to treat the moment with the seriousness it demands. The gap becomes clear. Beerus overwhelms him and calls out the restraint that Gohan doesn't realize he's holding on to. But surrounded by his family, Pan, Videl, and his friend Dende, Gohan is reminded of what his strength protects, not just what it proves. That realization sparks something deeper. Power surges back into the fight, and Gohan re-enters the battle with clarity and focus, thinking back on the days when he was a young boy fighting against Cell, finally giving Beerus a match that holds his attention. Now during the clash, the fists lock together, and in a suspended moment, Gohan taps into God Ki. The battle shifts into its final phase from there. No matter how hard the player pushes though, the outcome is fixed. Beerus overwhelms him, but not with disappointment. He's amused, even impressed, recognizing the growth Gohan's achieved in such a short span of time. At Beerus' command, Dende steps in to heal the Saiyan and the group begins to part ways. Gohan leaves the encounter carrying new strength with him, a deeper reserve of power meant for the people he still needs to protect. But as they head back towards Earth, something lingers. Now attuned to God Ki, Gohan senses a presence cutting through the galaxy. Malicious, distorted, and unmistakably familiar. Feeling sharpens into certainty. The bioengineered time-traveling Cell Diddy Combs has returned, revived with revenge, guiding his every move. I'll leave the story off here now. On a cliffhanger? I know. But go check out his channel and check out the battle ID to play the rest of it yourself. What makes this sequence stand out is how rarely you find creators who commit to a story that unfolds across multiple battles with a clear through line. Even rarer is how close the dialogue aligns with each character. From the opening moment, the story gives itself room to breathe. You're encouraged to settle into this world, to observe what these characters are doing between the conflict, and to engage with the mode systems as tools for storytelling rather than a checkpoint to rush through. It's like the creator is intent on using every piece of the sandbox to support his narrative. Now there are places where that space could have been pushed even further. A brief check-in with characters like Krillin, Vegeta, Trunks, or Piccolo would have added texture before the story pivots towards its central threat. Still, this chapter clearly positions itself as a starting point, an opening moment designed to set the tone for a much larger sequence of stories the creator has already begun building beyond that moment. And this is where Sparking Zero's custom battles really show their strength. When fans slow down, listen to the characters, and let the story unfold at its own pace, you get something like this. An opening chapter that feels considered and carefully shaped. It doesn't rush towards a conclusion or try to overwhelm you with the spectacle. It simply sets the tone, establishes its idea, and leaves you with the sense that there's more waiting just beyond this first fight. The story drops us right into the heart of the King Piccolo era. Goku is mid-fight, landing a massive blow on the Demon King when a figure descends from the sky. It's Raditz, arriving on Earth years ahead of schedule, but he's been watching from the shadows, tracking Goku's rapid growth from his first encounter with Piccolo to this very moment. Raditz sees a tool, a jump in power that could actually give the Saiyans the leverage they need to eventually overthrow Frieza. Goku, of course, isn't interested in galactic conquest, which leads us into our first fight. Raditz begins to show his little brother that the gap between a human-trained martial artist and a Saiyan warrior is miles apart. But after the fight, Raditz doesn't kill him. Instead, he sees the raw potential and decides to take Goku off-planet, essentially holding the return to Earth as a prize Goku can earn once he's properly seasoned. While this is happening, Piccolo stays hidden to avoid a fight he knows he can't win, but the world doesn't stay defenseless. Kami telepathically reaches out to Ten Shinhan, summoning him to the lookout to begin his training immediately. We fast forward years later to find a drastically more powerful Ten Shenhan confronting the Demon King. In a poetic reversal of history, the new protector of Earth successfully seals Piccolo away with the Mafuba, vowing to stand guard against whatever else the universe throws at them. Meanwhile, out in the stars, Goku's stubborn turtle hermit nature is causing massive friction with the other three Saiyans. It finally hits a breaking point where Goku decides he's done taking orders and takes on the trio. Raditz is sent in first to discipline his brother, but he's completely outclassed. You have to figure that Goku's mindset, that constant drive to improve combined with the Zenkai boost from fighting planetary threats across the galaxy has skyrocketed his power. Raditz is broken effortlessly. Nappa steps up next, fueled by a private need to see if he could still handle the low-class brat, but he falls just as easily. This leaves us with the final confrontation, the low-class warrior versus the elite prince. Vegeta is ready to end this nuisance once and for all, while Goku is fighting for the one thing that matters, the chance to finally go home. We take control of Goku as he finally overcomes the prince, obliterating the last of the Saiyan threat. With the battle over, he's finally able to focus on returning home. He commandeers a space pod and sets course for Earth, eventually landing right on Kamu's lookout to reunite with his friends. It's such an interesting shift in the timeline, it makes me wonder how the rest of the series would even function from here. Almost every major saga would play out differently. You have to imagine Goku would spend his time training for the inevitable day Frieza comes looking for him, but then you have the androids to consider. Either they wouldn't be as formidable without the data from the Saiyan conflict, or Zero might have tried to launch a premature attack while Goku was gone, leaving Ten Shenhan as the one to deal with them. We open this next story at a moment we all know too well. King Cold's ship touches down on Earth, but instead of Frieza stepping out to face his fate, it's Cooler, standing beside his father. In this version of events, Frieza never survives, leaving Cooler and King Cold to carry out the revenge plot themselves. As usual, Trunks jumps in, but he notices something is off. This isn't Frieza. Even then, it doesn't slow him down. He transforms into a Super Saiyan and makes quick work of King Cold in the opening fight. But when Cooler steps in, that tone shifts. Trunks' attack barely registering, and Cooler holds his ground throughout the entire match. As you start to do less and less damage, Goku eventually intervenes with a Kaioken strike that does little to change the momentum. Not knowing who Trunks is, Goku tells him to fall back and takes the fight on himself. This next phase is done very well. You're given the option to transform, and doing so feels almost necessary just to keep the pace up. And even then, Cooler's durability becomes more apparent as the battle keeps going on, eventually leading for him to transform into his final form, and landing a gut-punching counterattack that knocks Goku out of Super Saiyan entirely.
Show you true hell!
Piccolo and Vegeta step in to buy some time while Vegeta belittles Goku for not being able to finish him off as a Super Saiyan. Piccolo is suggesting the Spirit Bomb as their only viable option to survive here. The match does a wonderful job of conveying how much weaker they are than Cooler, as neither Vegeta or Piccolo can do any type of damage to Cooler. Your goal here is to survive as long as you can. Before Piccolo is taken out completely, Vegeta swaps in. But like I said before, not even the Prince of Saiyans can do any damage to this tyrant. Trunks returns into the field right before watching his father get killed off by Cooler, and that uphill struggle continues on. After sustaining enough punishment, Goku finally announces that the Spirit Bomb is ready, and this is where the alternative routes really shine. With a high difficulty CPU and a limited opportunity to send out the Spirit Bomb because of the sparking meter going down so fast, choosing the right moment to release the attack honestly creates a real sense of anxiety. Now if the Spirit Bomb connects, Cooler's driven into the sun, restoring the timeline and leading directly into Goku receiving his heart medicine from Trunks. But if you miss, Cooler takes the opportunity to send a supernova back at Goku, destroying him and everyone on the planet Earth along with him. But if you're able to land that Spirit Bomb, the story folds back into main timeline events from there, making this just a slight divergence from the original events. This is an outstanding custom battle. Cooler feels like a genuine threat throughout the entirety of it. I've always been a big fan of storytelling through gameplay, so stripping away any damage the cast can do to Cooler because of that power gap is very welcomed, and the addition of the time-sensitive objective really adds in an anxiety I don't really get from playing video games anymore. This custom battle diverges just enough from the original story to still feel fresh while returning back to the original timeline's progression. Now this next one drops us into the Daima timeline. Just before Vegeta and Piccolo leave to back up Goku in the Demon Realm, a familiar time machine tears through the sky. Future Trunks stumbles out battered, and the moment he sees everyone reduced to childlike form, doubt sets in immediately. Whatever he's running from doesn't feel like something they can handle in this state. Vegeta, already irritated by his smaller frame and Trunks' hesitation, answers that doubt the only way he knows how, by attacking. The match begins in base form, and as it escalates, Vegeta cycles through Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3. With each transformation, Trunks' confidence grows. Even like this, even restricted, Vegeta still has the power needed to make a difference. Trunks pushes further, ascending to Super Saiyan 2 as the second phase begins. His health fully restored to test this new resolve, but that result still doesn't change. Vegeta wins again, child body or not. Convinced, Trunks believes they finally have a chance against the force destroying his future, Goku Black. Vegeta agrees to go with him, promising to return and assist Goku in the Demon Realm afterwards. Now what follows isn't the outcome you expect. It definitely wasn't what I expected. Upon getting to the future timeline, Vegeta is killed and Trunks is left exactly where he started. This story completely won me over. On a first playthrough, it feels very straightforward, almost unassuming, but that ending reframed everything. I'm usually drawn to matches built around branching paths and mechanics, but this one proves you don't always need that. Sometimes a clean setup, strong character use, and a sharp turn at the end are more than enough to make it land. One thought that always stuck with me during the Goku Black arc was how Zamasu just walked away after stealing Goku's body. Nobody seemed to do anything to stop him or get the body back in that specific timeline. This next custom battle tries to take a more realistic approach to that nightmare scenario. Goku and Goten are out farming when a blinding light hits, and suddenly Goku's staring out of the eyes of a Kai. Before they can even process the swap, a man in Goku's body descends from the sky and immediately attacks. But unlike the story Zamasu told us in Super, the timeline shifts here because of one major factor. Vegeta. Vegeta picks up on this bizarre shift in energy the second it happens and arrives on the scene in time to intercept the fake. He challenges this Goku Black, who finds out the hard way that stealing a body doesn't mean you automatically know how to use it. Even when the imposter taps into Super Saiyan Rose form out of pure desperation as his plans fall apart, he still can't keep up with Vegeta's raw power. Black is killed here before he can ever become that universal threat that we know. In the aftermath, we get the classic Dragon Ball humor. Goku is still trapped in Zamasu's lanky body and is absolutely terrified of how Chi-Chi is going to react when she sees him. Goten warns them that she's already on her way, so they scramble and fly off, leaving Vegeta behind to deal with her temper. Everything eventually gets sorted out once Beerus and Whis are brought into the loop. They use the Dragon Balls to put Goku back where he belongs and the timeline snaps back to normal. Sometimes these scenarios don't need a massive multi-part follow-up. Now this next story takes us back to the day Frieza and King Cole arrive on Earth, but the situation here has already spiraled far beyond what we're used to seeing. Frieza has refined his mechanical body through training and put it to use immediately. The warriors meant to stop him lie defeated. Trunks, even as a Super Saiyan, never stood a chance. With no one left to challenge him, Frieza waits patiently for the Super Saiyan he actually wants to face, Son Goku. Watching from a distance, Dr. Gero leaves his hideout to observe the chaos firsthand. Frieza's presence represents an opportunity, a possible alliance, one that could finally eliminate Goku for good. Gero approaches with that intention, but Frieza has no interest in sharing that credit. Goku's death belongs to him alone. That dismissal turns violent. Gero attacks only to be overwhelmed almost instantly by Frieza's upgraded body. Wounded and desperate, Gero activates his contingency plan. Androids 17 and 18, but control slips through his fingers almost instantly. The androids, refusing to be shut down again, turn on their creator and end him without hesitation. With no one left in their way, their attention shifts naturally to Frieza. The galactic tyrant standing alone presents the perfect opportunity to test their strength and cure them of their boredom. Now this is where the difficulty begins to rise. Frieza can damage them enough to matter, but the constant swapping between 17 and 18 steadily overwhelms him. The fight becomes suffocating. Frieza starts to realize how narrow his chances have become. Cornered and nearing defeat, a thought crosses his mind. If Goku were here, things could have changed. The battlefield answers that thought violently. Goku arrives to find the broken bodies of his friends scattered across the ground. Rage takes over immediately. He launches himself at Frieza without hesitation. Now jumping to the sidelines, 17 and 18 step back, content with watching them destroy each other. Frieza is shaken but quick to adapt, pleads for a temporary alliance. Goku brushes him off at first, but Frieza presses the point. If the androids win, Earth is finished. Goku doesn't need to trust him, only acknowledge the threat in front of them. When asked if this was some sort of scheme, Frieza's motivation becomes clear. He just wants to test his new power against Goku properly, but they can't do that with the androids sitting in front of them. Goku agrees and the two turn to face the androids. The match resumes with a new pairing. Goku takes on Android 18 while Frieza engages 17. Neither Goku or Frieza has access to their full kits, pushing most of the combat into close range exchanges. Goku's presence is immediately felt though. Frieza up until this point in his android matches felt almost on par, at least slightly on the level of the androids, while Goku's just washing their health away, eventually putting Android 18 down. The focus shifts back to Frieza and 17. The two fight near even footing, with Frieza barely pulling ahead. A clever touch here comes through mid-battle dialogue. Taking too much damage as either Goku or Frieza will have your partner call it out, questioning your performance. As Android 17 is pushed to the side, a death ball ends the fight, destroying both androids, leaving only two figures standing in the battlefield. Goku and Frieza turn towards each other, ready to prove who is the strongest in the universe after all. This whole scenario feels pulled straight out of those old what-if stories, something similar to the Supersonic Warriors back in the day. It's like a strange self-contained space without needing to justify every detail. Now, timeline interferences has always warped outcomes in very unpredictable ways, and this story leans into that uncertainty. The androids feel much weaker than they should have, and despite Frieza's training, he's nowhere near the level he should have been like he was in Resurrection F. Instead, Frieza feels very desperate and Goku feels exactly where he should be. It's a contained idea, confident where it starts and comfortable with where it ends. I walked away curious with what goes on next, but satisfied, because sometimes the strength of a what-if comes from knowing when to stop. We flash back to the day of the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai. Krillin's body has just been discovered. The celebration surrounding the tournament disappears in an instant. Goku stands over his fallen friend and the realization settles in quickly. Someone did this. Now driven by a level of grief this young boy has never known, he hunts down the assassin. What he finds is Tambourine, and when they finally clash, Goku's rage hits a breaking point, triggering the Super Saiyan transformation years ahead of schedule. Single overwhelming Kamehameha vaporizes the demon, leaving nothing but a scorched earth where the killer once stood. Now sensing the sudden extinction of his son's life force, King Piccolo arrives to investigate. He finds himself staring down a golden warrior whose power dwarfs his own. Now, you probably have noticed this already, but the creator had to improvise. Tambourine is represented by Majin Buu, and this version of King Piccolo is using Piccolo Jr. as a stand-in. At the time of recording this, the summer DLC has not been released yet, so creators were working with what the game had already offered. I always appreciate that kind of workaround. When certain characters aren't available yet, people still find ways to bring that story together using what exists in the roster. Now, despite the gap in strength, Piccolo challenges the boy only to be dismantled by the Saiyan's raw speed and force. In a departure from the usual grim ending of this scenario, Goku chooses to spare the old demon. He recognizes that Piccolo is utterly powerless to threaten him now, and leaving the Namekian to retreat into the shadows, defeated and humiliated by a child. With the immediate danger gone, Goku gathers the Dragon Balls and summons Shenron. Krillin is revived and the group reunites once more as the planet returns to peace. Now, this entire story changes the future of Dragon Ball. Since this was the original King Piccolo, not a reincarnated Junior, the world is left with a much weaker Namekian presence, potentially leaving Kami in a state of deep concern over how to balance the new scales. The most dangerous ripple effect lies in the shadows of the Red Ribbon Army. Dr. Gero's bots have recorded a power level that shouldn't exist for a very long time. By witnessing a Super Saiyan this early, Gero's data will force him to accelerate his research, likely resulting in androids in a version of Cell designed specifically to combat a Super Saiyan from the very start. While the upcoming Saiyan invasion might seem just like a minor hurdle for Goku, the mechanical nightmare waiting in the future has just become significantly more lethal. Set years after the end of Z within the Dragon Ball Super timeline, Goku and Vegeta find themselves locked in a familiar argument, not over their own strength, but over their students they've raised. Each believes their pupil represents the future, and with the World Tournament approaching once again, the debate finally has a stage. A now grown-up Oob steps forward to face Kaba of Universe 6, two young warriors shaped by a very different path, both fighting to honor the mentors who molded them. Even in the way they stand, you can feel the influence, both an echo of Goku and Vegeta staring each other down through their students. The match is relentless, momentum swings back and forth as neither fighter is willing to give an inch. Oob eventually finds his opening and crashes into Kaba with a rapid barrage that nearly overwhelms him, but instead of breaking, Kaba adapts. The pressure ignites something deeper and he ascends to Super Saiyan, forcing Oob onto the defensive as the balance of the fight shifts. Kaba presses harder, pushing himself even further into Super Saiyan 2.
This is the power of a Saiyan!
Sending out a massive final flash that tears across the arena, leaving Oob barely standing and clinging to consciousness. As Kaba revels in his power he's unlocked, for a moment it feels like the fight is slipping away from him. But in that moment of weakness, Oob is struck by a vision, Goku turning away from him, choosing to move on, seeing him as a student who couldn't rise when it mattered the most. The fear of being left behind cracks something open. The dormant Majin power within Oob surges to the surface. Where he stands again, the fight has changed. The hesitation is gone. Oob overwhelms Kaba with sheer force, flipping the momentum completely and ending the match with a devastating wave of ki that leaves no doubt about the outcome. With the victor decided, Kaba offers an apology to Vegeta for falling short. The Saiyan Prince doesn't look disappointed. In fact, he's proud of how far his student has pushed himself. Oob and Goku depart together, returning to their training while Goku smiles with the excitement of someone eager to see just how far this new power can go. We fade into a familiar scene, one that we're used to. Goku Black is ravaging throughout the future. Cities are completely demolished. The once reconstructed West City is now left as rubble. The first divergence in the story happens here. Not only is Bulma killed by Goku Black, but so is Mai, leaving Trunks to run throughout the city landscape by himself, eventually culminating to our first battle, Goku Black versus Trunks, with the player taking control of Goku Black. It's also immediately clear here that we are way overpowered in this fight. Now throughout all of these matches, every character is filled with capsules to help immerse the player in the events going on. If they're stronger, they usually have much stronger capsules included in their arsenal, and their CPUs cranked to the max. Every single match here tests your patience in the absolute best way possible. Now after beating down on Trunks, the scripted sequence unfolds with Trunks emptying everything he has left. One last surge, one final attempt to turn the tide, and when all fails, he creates an opening with the solar flare and vanishes. His destination is clear. He needs reinforcements from the past. Goku Black stands in a silence-filled battleground, and it's here where he notices the time ring makes a noise. Whatever Trunks did, he can follow him, and so he sets off following the time ring's guidance. But where we land is not where we expected. In the city, we see the Tuffle baby, right as he defeats Goku, and within seconds, Black descends and challenges this warrior. Throughout the combat, pieces of Baby's history surface. The extinction of the Tuffles, the resentment towards the Saiyans, and the possession of Vegeta's body. The clash is uneven from the outset. Baby cycles through his transformations, pushing his borrowed Saiyan strength as far as it will go. Black responds, methodically studying him. When Rose enters the field, the difference in class becomes unmistakable. But rather than finishing the fight, he presents a proposition. Join him in the future, or die here. A Saiyan body fused with Tuffle intellect has its advantages. Baby considers the offers and accepts. The two depart together, leaving the GT timeline without its reigning threat, along with the version of Vegeta that will never return. This brings us back to the future timeline. Trunks returns with Goku and Vegeta mirroring the same structure we know, but with one key distinction here. They have yet to encounter Black. They arrive with no context or read on his power, stepping directly into the unknown. Black wastes little time making his presence known. This time, it's Vegeta who strikes first, already wielding Super Saiyan God. Black is visibly irritated. A strong design throughout these matches is the use of in-game effects to represent Black's evolving power. When you control him, absorbing damage triggers buffs that steadily elevate his output of damage. But when you're fighting him, those same mechanics force you to think before committing to combos. Reckless pressure can end up empowering him, and if he gets a string on you, it's over. Vegeta questions the identity of this imposter, struggling to reconcile this familiar face with the overwhelming power behind it. Black responds, remarking that mimicking divinity does not grant true authority, and that statement pushes Vegeta further, drawing out Super Saiyan Blue as he charges forward, only to halt mid-attack. A new key enters the battlefield, familiar yet different. In the sky, baby Vegeta descends and declares his revenge against Vegeta and the Saiyans. The stability Trunks hoped to restore begins to unravel here. Trunks transforms into a Super Saiyan 2, committing himself fully to defending his era and speeding into the battlefield. But he's caught off guard by Black and taken down from behind. Now with both invaders standing together, the pressure here starts to build. The game alternates between two battles, letting you experience both sides of the chaos. Black reveals Rose and gradually overtakes Goku while Baby corners down on Vegeta. With your options narrowing, Goku creates an opening using the solar flare, grabs Trunks and Vegeta and retreats to the time machine back to the past. The next two battles are a little bit of a palate cleanser, and gives stronger footing to one of Super's most debated transformations. Vegeta brings Trunks into the Room of Spirit and Time, just as he once did years ago. His goal is for Trunks to draw out everything he has. Trunks tries, but his thoughts keep pulling him backwards. The weight of what he's seen refuses to loosen his grip. Vegeta pushes him harder, reminding him that strength is the only path left if the future is going to survive. As they clash, we see these haunting flashbacks of Goku Black and baby Vegeta and the tragic deaths of Bulma and his friends. It completely stops Trunks in his tracks. And in a rare moment of guidance, Vegeta calms him down, and they transition into the second phase of their sparring as Super Saiyans. But Trunks still can't find his focus. The weight of his failure is just too heavy. During the match, Vegeta capitalizes on an opening and lands a strike that would normally decide this match. But Trunks rises again, surrounded by an intense light that floods the chamber. This power manifests as Super Saiyan Rage, and he fires a massive final flash towards his father. Vegeta uses the rest of the session to help Trunks stabilize this new power, before finally calling the match and telling his son the words he needed to hear. He's proud of him. I absolutely love this concept. Using this Trunks' PTSD as a catalyst to mutate the Super Saiyan form into something more primal and aggressive is a fantastic piece of storytelling, and something I didn't expect to find in a custom battle. We now shift focus to Goku, and the battle he has with Whis serves as a perfect transition, showing Goku desperately trying to bridge the gap between himself and Black. He's cycling through his god forms, absorbing every critique Whis throws at him until he's completely drained. We even get a massive teaser when Beerus steps in with some rare encouragement, causing Goku to briefly tap into Ultra Instinct before his body gives out. Beerus questions the situation and why they're even training, and Goku explains the time ring he saw Black wearing. The pieces begin to align, pointing them towards Zamasu. From there, the story follows its course, 1-for-1, into Universe 10. Goku, Vegeta, Bulma, and Trunks eventually return to the future, only to discover that erasing Zamasu changes nothing. The crisis remains intact. The battles resume with the table mechanics returning, rotating control between encounters. This time Vegeta performs far better against Baby, gradually shifting the momentum in his favor. Goku learns what happened to Chi-Chi and Goten after Zamasu stole his body, and he unleashes a full power Kamehameha, but Black withstands it and answers with a blast of his own that drops Goku where he stands. Now, I'm a big fan of this scene in the anime, so I'm glad that such a small moment was still included here. Trunks tries to intervene, but he's swatted away just as easily. That leaves Vegeta alone in a brutal 1v2. You're forced to deal with both opponents tagging in and out, constantly chipping away at your health while they grow stronger with every bit of damage they take. Now, this is easily the most difficult fight in the entire scenario. The sheer number of game overs I hit was absurd. You actually have to master the mechanics set in motion just to survive their onslaught. Eventually, Trunks reaches Bulma and urges her to get a senzu to Goku. Without waiting, he turns back into the battlefield. He arrives just as Vegeta is being overwhelmed, barely maintaining his Super Saiyan state. Trunks intercepts the finishing blow at the final moment, pulling his father out of immediate danger. It's a haunting parallel to history as Trunks takes on both Black and Baby alone. He's flooded with flashbacks of Gohan's final stand against the androids. Again, perfectly encapsulated in this custom battle. Taking time away from the fight to really show how much of a threat these two are, a reference back to Gohan's battle, was perfectly done. Trunks realizes he can't win, but he refuses to stop. All the while, Black and Baby are just relentless, belittling his weakness and mocking his effort. Trunks draws on what little strength remains, and this scene briefly shifts to Bulma delivering the senzu to Vegeta. Now restored, he races back towards the battlefield, but by the time he arrives, Trunks can no longer sustain his transformation. Overpowered, he falls to the combined assaults, and in his final moments he tells Vegeta to protect the future, to finish what he could not, haunted by the feeling that he failed this world one last time. Seeing his son fall triggers something primal in the prince. Vegeta stands up and shatters his internal ceiling, erupting into Super Saiyan Blue evolution. It's a desperate high-stakes surge of powers as he charges back into what looks like a losing battle. Baby Vegeta quickly finds out that he can't even scratch the prince in this state, and gets swatted aside like he's nothing. Vegeta locks his sight on Goku Black, who, even in the face of this new overwhelming pressure, doesn't show a hint of fear. Midway through this fight, Goku re-enters the battlefield at full speed, driving Baby aside as he locks onto Goku Black. He stacks Kaioken over Blue, forcing his way closer in power to him. The future invaders finally realize that no matter how many times they beat these two down, they just keep getting back up stronger. That's when Black decides to pull the trigger on something truly dire. Since they can't break the Saiyans separately, they're going to do it together. Black tosses his Potara earring to the Tuffle, and right here in the middle of the wasteland, Baby Vegito is born. Now, the base game uses the standard Vegito for this, but since we're on a PC story, I swapped him out for the proper Baby Vegito model. What follows is a brilliant sequence of gameplay. You're forced to swap back and forth between Goku and Vegeta, throwing every single thing in their arsenal at this monster, but it does absolutely nothing. Vegito's power is just absurd. Realizing a direct approach is suicide, Vegeta decides to buy Goku enough time to charge a Spirit Bomb, stepping up to hold off the fusion alone. Eventually the Spirit Bomb lands, but it leaves no visible effect. Vegito responds with his own blast, striking Goku down and removing him from the field. It's now just Vegeta, standing alone. With nothing left to conserve, he commits to a final explosion.
Going to survive this!
The blast engulfs the area, but when the light fades, the fusion remains. As Vegeta stands alone against certain death, we dive into Goku's mind. He's seeing flashes of his friends and family, everyone urging him to find that one last spark. The words we spoke earlier echo back to him, and just before Vegito can deliver the final blow to Vegeta, Goku's back on his feet, standing there like a ghost. When Vegito lunges in to finish the job, Goku unleashes the full weight of Ultra Instinct, sending a physical chill down Vegito's spine. Throughout this final encounter, the power gap just keeps widening. Goku's growing mid-battle, completely outclassing Vegito's brute force. Inspired by the impossible turn of events, Vegeta finds his second wind and jumps back into the fray. Now with the combined overwhelming might of Blue Evolution and Ultra Instinct, the duo finally erase Vegito from existence.
This is the end for you!
Purging the future of its invaders once and for all. Vegeta informs Bulma and Goku of Trunks' death, and Goku gets the idea of using the Namekian Dragon Balls. He can hone in on this world's version of Dende to help out. In that quiet that follows, Trunks finds himself in Otherworld, reflecting on the defeat that brought him here. Bulma's voice calls out, and beside her stands Gohan. Years have passed, yet the bond is still very strong. As the two spar, Trunks speaks of the weight he carries, the feeling that despite every victory, the future remains fragile. Gohan listens and reminds him what he's accomplished. He's avenged the fallen, he's protected the world, and he's honored their legacy. But Trunks senses there's still more to be done. He's yet to reach his true potential. He informs Gohan of what happened to him. This sends the two into overdrive, fueled by the hope that Baba's one day on Earth rule might give him a chance to stop Black and Baby. When Trunks mentions the past versions of Goku and Vegeta are currently fighting on Earth, it lights a fire under Gohan to reach even greater heights. Meanwhile, Bulma uses her genius to peek into the mortal realm, eventually figuring out a way to watch the battle unfolding on Earth. In a beautiful moment during their training, Gohan asks about the limits of the Saiyan bloodline after seeing Trunks hit Super Saiyan 2. Trunks reveals the tip of the iceberg, explaining the existence of Super Saiyan 3, God and Blue. This gives both warriors a massive new ceiling to aim for. The execution here is incredible. The creator used flashback style scenes recreated frame by frame to show Gohan and Trunks watching the battle from afar. They witness Goku achieving Ultra Instinct and teaming up with Vegeta to take down baby Vegito. And as Goku charged the Spirit Bomb, we see Gohan and Trunks raising their hands, pouring their energy across the dimension to help the hero. And when the Namekian Dragon Balls are finally used, the wish is made. Revive Trunks, the future Bulma, Gohan, and the entire future timeline. In a final heart-wrenching moment, Goku and future Gohan lock eyes one last time. Since Goku died of natural causes and can't be revived, he leaves his son with a final word of encouragement, telling him to take the strength he found in the other world and use it to protect that peace forever. This story takes place 6 months after the defeat of Majin Buu. Even when the world finally at peace, Magenta and the remnants of the Red Ribbon Army never stopped watching. Their spy drones have continued tracking Goku and his allies, even following him all the way to the planet of the Kais, where they witnessed the final moments of Buu's defeat. Armed with the schematics for a new iteration of Cell, Magenta originally planned to take his time, but after seeing the sheer scale of the Saiyan's power, he realizes that he has to pull that trigger immediately. The Red Ribbon Army rounds up the Dragon Balls with the intent of wishing their enemies out of existence, but when Shenron refuses to grant a wish for death, Magenta pivots, wishing to turn the heroes into children before unleashing his creation onto the city. Goku and Vegeta return from a training session only to find themselves reverted to their youth, just as Cell Max begins leveling West City. Two of them can still fight, but their bodies no longer respond with the same force they're used to. The power is there, buried somewhere underneath the surface, yet drawing it out isn't nearly as natural as it once was. Both Saiyans realize that while they can take this monster on, the lack of access to their full power makes this a much steeper climb than they anticipated. Between the lack of Heto's genius and the missing combat data from the later years of Dragon Ball Super, this version of the bio-android is theoretically much weaker than the one we saw on the big screen, but against two children, he's still a nightmare. Goku is the first to step in, and at the start of the fight, his movements still carry that awkward adjustment of being back in a child's body, but as the battle continues, his instincts begin to settle in again. The rhythm of combat comes back to him piece by piece, and before long he manages to tap into Super Saiyan. Watching from the sideline, Vegeta can already sense something about their opponent. This version of Cell Max feels noticeably weaker than the threat they had expected. In Vegeta's mind, this shouldn't even be a contest. Frustrated, the prince shoves his way into battle, but he quickly finds that his smaller body is a massive handicap. Like Goku before him, he's forced into Super Saiyan just to maintain the pace. While Vegeta is trading blows with the androids, Goku begins to analyze the bio-android's movements. He notices a clear pattern here. Cell Max is desperately shielding the top of his head. Goku calls out that weak spot, but even with that knowledge, Vegeta's speed isn't quite where it needs to be. He pushes himself into Super Saiyan 2, using the burst of power to pin Cell Max in place just long enough for Goku to begin charging a massive Kamehameha, aimed directly at the android's head. The plan falls apart though. Cell Max gains the upper hand, hammering Vegeta out of the transformation and turning a massive ki blast towards Goku. Vegeta is left struggling to find his feet, but it's Magenta's trash talk that finally triggers the breakthrough. Being looked down on by such a weak opponent sends Vegeta over the edge, forcing a transformation into Super Saiyan 3. He uses that newfound speed to close the gap and completely vaporize Cell Max with a Big Bang attack. In the aftermath, Magenta manages to slip away into the shadows. Goku is left asking the obvious question, how Vegeta managed to tap into that level of power, but in typical Vegeta fashion, he doesn't get a straight answer. The two take off, heading back to face the much more difficult task of explaining to their families why they're suddenly children again. The timing here creates a fascinating ripple effect. Would Magenta try to bring back another version of Cell in the future? Or if he gives up entirely, would Gohan ever get the beast form? We find ourselves on planet Namek, a familiar setting framed by a very new pivotal moment. Vegeta has Zarbon on the brink of defeat. Before that final blow is delivered though, Zarbon makes a last request. He urges Vegeta to defeat Frieza, placing his faith in the rapid growth of the Saiyans and their ability to bring an end to the destruction Frieza has spread across the universe. Zarbon then hands Vegeta 2 earrings, the same pair he had worn as jewelry, along with the brief instructions on how to use them. Vegeta reacts with his usual dismissiveness, laughing off the idea while quietly keeping the earrings as a contingency. The timeline resumes its expected course. Zarbon is killed by the prince and events continue along their established pathway. The divergence emerges later during the battle against Frieza though. Vegeta survives the encounter long enough for a different choice to present itself. As Goku prepares to attempt the Spirit Bomb, Vegeta recalls Zarbon's instructions and passes the Potara earrings to him. King Kai immediately recognizes the significance and the decision is then made. On the barren battlefield of Namek, two Saiyans fuse, and in that moment, Vegito is born. Frieza responds with a very visible shock. Questions spill out as he tries to understand the warrior now standing before him. The moment doesn't linger though. The battle begins almost immediately with the two Saiyans holding the hope of their dead race, now acting as a single force, moving with a shared purpose aimed squarely at ending Frieza's reign. Vegito enters the fight feeling overwhelmingly prepared, stacked with advantages that allow you to tear through Frieza at a relentless pace. Cornered and outpaced now, Frieza commits fully to the desperation. He pours everything into reaching his 100% form, drawing on the last of his strength in a final attempt to reassert dominance. With the transformation successful, the outcome still remains unchanged. Vegito overwhelms him, completely erasing the tyrant and bringing the Namek conflict to a definitive close. Now, I love the idea of Zarbon's jewelry becoming a believable bridge that carries the Potara into this version of events, grounding this godlike item into a smaller character-driven choice, and it opens the door to a broader world that invites further exploration. Goku and Vegeta return to Earth noticeably weaker after this, yet shaped by the experience of fusion. Would this make the two more understanding of one another? And with power being revealed on this scale, it tends to draw attention. Would this act of fusion raise the possibility of Supreme Kai intervening earlier and redirecting their path towards the looming threat of Majin Buu after witnessing how strong these warriors are? Each of these implications extend naturally from the events on Namek, opening threads rather than closing it all together. Outside of that great story startup, I believe a few additional moments could have expanded this match, maybe giving Frieza some more scenes showcasing how terrified he is of the Saiyan and using those to give some HP back so the fight doesn't end so quickly, and adding some extra scenes in the ending so that there's reactions from the others still on the planet, and a brief defusion scene would have added some comedy to the aftermath. Even so, the scenario closes with the sense of a timeline still unfolding, one that encourages curiosity about where this version of the story might lead next. Trunks and Cell's time travel to the past have shown to cause multiple issues, one being boosting of the android's power levels far beyond what Trunks had in his timeline. This scenario asks a simple but terrifying question: what happens if the android's power boost was much more significant? We open on the islands where Piccolo is desperately trying to keep Android 17 at bay. Usually this is the clash of equals, but here the Namekian's best efforts fall short. Every strike that should be significant is barely leaving a scratch. This power gap leads 17 to start toying with him, delivering a slow, agonizing beatdown out of sheer annoyance that this real challenge turned out to be a disappointment. Up on the lookout, Gohan has seen enough. Watching his mentor's key signature plummet more and more is enraging him. Despite Goku's best efforts to keep him still as they wait for Vegeta, Gohan snaps. He takes off, ascending towards the islands in a desperate bid to save his friend. Goku tries to give chase, but Vegeta and Trunks emerge from the time chamber just in time to stop him. The prince is insistent that this is his fight, and he's heading down to handle the androids himself. Down on the islands, Gohan barely reaches Piccolo before the situation turns terminal. He throws everything he has in 17, but the power gap is too wide and the boy is left badly beaten. Vegeta finally touches down, but his focus isn't on saving anyone. He wants his rematch with Android 18. Even after forcing out his ascended form and pouring every ounce of pride into a final flash, 18 just walks through the smoke, completely protected by her barrier. Trunks is already taken down by the hands of 17, and now Vegeta is at his limit too. Goku arrives just in time to pull Vegeta back from a lethal strike, realizing he has to take on both androids alone. The teamwork between 17 and 18 is too much for him to manage, but the fight takes a sharp turn when Android 16 intervenes. He thanks the twins for the opening, grabs Goku, and triggers his self-destruct.
Disengaging limiter. I must use my last resort.
Now, despite that massive destructive blow, Goku somehow crawls out of the crater, clinging to life, but he's completely spent. Just as 17 moves in to end it, Cell finally makes his move. He's been lurking in the shadows this whole time, waiting for everyone to wear each other down, and now he's landing heavy blows on the unsuspecting androids. With the androids backed into a corner, Goku realizes their only shot at surviving Cell is to work together. He sees past their programming, recognizing that there isn't any true malice behind their actions. Cell isn't impressed. He mocks Goku's inability to keep up and begins to unveil his true power, gloating about how he plans to fold all of them into his own biology. The struggle is brutal, but in the heat of the fight, Goku finally shatters his limits and he pushes straight into Super Saiyan 2. The aura is shifting as he prepares a massive Kamehameha. The androids don't hesitate, backing his beam up with their own energy to create a combined assault that completely erases the bio-android from the face of the earth. In the aftermath, Android 17 and 18 stand among the wreckage, clearly impressed by how much the Z-Warriors, Goku especially, surpassed their initial expectations. Rather than continuing the cycle of violence, the twins issue a challenge. They want a rematch in 1 week. With a temporary truce established, everyone leaves the area to spend those 7 days pushing their limits. I love this scenario simply because it leans into the idea that those androids were never truly evil. They were just bored and looking for a challenge. By giving Goku and the others a week of training after already hitting Super Saiyan 2, the power gap is going to shift drastically. The real question now is how this rematch ends. Does the Dragon Team follow through on the original mission to destroy them? Or does this turn into a permanent training partnership where the androids finally learn to grow their own power alongside the Saiyans? We open with Goku returning to Earth, only to find the planet already slipping into chaos. The atmosphere feels wrong, the land itself shows signs of decay. A hostile Ki lingers nearby, and as Goku approaches its source, he's suddenly attacked by Piccolo. Bruised, disoriented, and acting on instinct after mistaking Goku for the one responsible for Gohan's injuries. The moment Piccolo recognizes Goku's voice, his posture softens, as relief starts to set in. Together they arrive at the battlefield. The Dragon team lies unconscious across the ground, and standing among them is a surviving Saiyan warrior surrounded by his crew. Goku struggles to place how someone like this could exist, let alone command this level of power. The fight unfolds across multiple phases, each structured around Turles repeatedly restoring his health through the fruit of the Tree of Might. Every time he consumes another fruit, the cast reacts, reinforcing how unnatural this escalation feels. Now Turles is stacked with capsules, and for much of this section, Goku's attacks barely leave a mark. After what feels like a long, lengthy series of punches, another surge in power pushes Goku into using Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. Turles takes notice of this increase of power and impressed extends his offer to join the Crusher Corps. The two of them can conquer every single universe. Goku turns it down without hesitation though. That refusal only deepens Turles' anger. As the fight drags on, exhaustion finally catches up. Goku's forced out of Kaioken, his stamina is finally depleted. Another fruit pushes Turles even further, leaving even Vegeta stunned by how far this power has climbed. What follows is a survival phase. Turles hits brutally hard, enough to destroy your health bar in a couple combos, while Goku's completely worn down and struggles to keep up. After what feels like another eternity, a clean opening appears and Turles slams Goku into the ground, burying him into a crater as he moves in to finish the fight.
Victory is mine.
In usual Goku fashion, in the last few seconds before his demise, a sudden burst of light flashes on the battlefield with Goku rising out of it. He clears the remaining space pirates from the field and turns his attention back to Turles. Now with Ultra Instinct, the final stretch begins. Goku dominates this exchange, forcing Turles into desperation. In an attempt to close the gap, Turles consumes yet another fruit, only for the rapid surge of power to overwhelm him. His body fails to keep pace with what he's taken in. That moment creates the opening that Goku needs. With Turles defeated but alive, Goku turns away, offering a final word instead of destroying him. He tells him to abandon the fruit, return to the real training, and rebuild his strength properly. If he does, Goku promises they'll meet again. Turles is left behind on the battlefield, conscious and questioning the path he chose in life as the others all depart with Goku. I really love this approach. Goku offering his opponent a chance to grow without shortcut feels completely in character, especially given that Turles never crosses the line into outright slaughter on his friends. That restraint gives the ending space to breathe and add on top of. Now, a few added scenes could have strengthened this setup, more context around Turles' arrival on Earth, how he tracked down Goku and Vegeta, or what became of the Tree of Might. Even without those answers, this experience holds together remarkably well. Now, the use of key sickness mechanics and the escalating table logic makes this one stand out. It's a strong reinterpretation that treats Turles as more than a relic of a single film, giving him a place within a larger evolving world. Now this next match brings us to the World Martial Arts Tournament, but in a timeline where the Z Warriors didn't waste any time. Understanding the fate of Earth if Buu was revived, the team neutralized Bobby, Deborah, and their subordinates before the Earth was put in danger and before the tournament could be derailed even more. With the threat of Majin Buu extinguished, the events proceed as intended, leading to a final round that fans have dreamed for years. Standing in the ring for the championship are Goku, who has already secured a victory over Vegeta, and Gohan. The younger Saiyan is determined to prove to his father that he's no longer the fledgling warrior who needs to be protected. As the match begins, both power up to Super Saiyan and the air in the arena becomes more dense. Gohan does an incredible job of rising to the occasion and matching Goku's intensity blow for blow. It's a great moment between the two. Goku's genuinely impressed and visibly happy to finally share the stage with his son again. Gohan erupts into Super Saiyan 2 to try and take the victory, and he begins to overwhelm Goku for a bit, effortlessly dodging a Kamehameha and forcing his father to completely reevaluate his strategy. Goku is now watching his son firsthand reignite his martial artist spirit and grow mid-battle. He begins to realize that Gohan is a far more formidable opponent than he anticipated, and decides to reveal the full extent of his training in the other world. He charges directly into Super Saiyan 3 right in the middle of the ring, leaving the spectators in a state of sheer awe and confusion before he delivers the final blow to end the match. As Gohan comes to, he finds his father smiling over him, expressing how proud he is of the progress Gohan has made. Now this custom battle is definitely taking some inspiration from Totally Not Mark's Majin Buu rewrite, which I have a massive appreciation for. I've always loved that story, and it's a scenario that feels entirely plausible if the Z Warriors had simply prioritized Shin's warning from the jump. It does leave us with a question for a fascinating new timeline. If things had ended this way, would Beerus have eventually sought out Goku in the afterlife, or Gohan in the search for the Super Saiyan God? The Tournament of Power is a distant memory, but the Saiyans of Universe 6 haven't forgotten that explosive growth they experienced while clashing with Universe 7. Eager to push their limits further, Kale and Caulifla secure permission from Champa and Vados to cross the cosmic border. Their goal is simple: find Goku and Vegeta and demand a rematch. But the Earth they arrive on isn't the peaceful training ground they expected. They find a world in total disarray and a sky filled with the echoes of a desperate struggle. Below, Goku is locked in a life-or-death battle against a parasite-infested Vegeta. The malevolent Tuffle Baby has somehow clawed his way into the Super Timeline and seized control of the prince's body. Baby Vegeta is currently pushing Goku to his absolute breaking point, and things are looking grim, till the two sisters drop in from the sky, intercepting a fatal blast just in time to save the veteran warrior. Kale and Caulifla dive headfirst into the battle, and while they don't fully grasp the situation, they know an enemy when they see one. They swap in to buy Goku some much needed breathing room, and their combined pressure quickly starts to irritate the Tuffle. Enraged by his inability to put them down, Baby forces a mutation, blending his Tuffle biology with the stolen Saiyan cells to push his evolution even further. Goku eventually finds his second wind and rejoins the battle, and with the three of them working in tandem, Goku taps into Super Saiyan Blue to level the playing field. The relentless pressure from the trio starts to install a genuine sense of fear in the Tuffle, but just as it looks like Vegeta's body is about to give out, a dark, suffocating aura takes hold. A forced evolution ripples through the prince, twisting his form until he towers over the city as a great ape. Kale and Caulifla are caught completely off guard by this monstrous transformation, forcing Goku to explain that in his universe the primal power is a core part of the Saiyan heritage. The three of them regroup to take on the massive, albeit slower, Great Ape. Kale and Caulifla coordinate their movements, distracting the Titan and buying enough time for Goku to charge a final Kamehameha. In a sharp departure from the original timeline, the blast is precise enough to incinerate the Tuffle parasite while leaving Vegeta's body intact. As the smoke clears, a battered Vegeta slowly regains consciousness. The immediate threat is over. Goku finally gets a moment to catch his breath and ask the question that's been on his mind. Why exactly did the two Saiyan women cross over into Universe 7? Kale and Caulifla don't miss a beat, answering in unison that they came for one reason: to train under Goku and Vegeta. Fusing these two timelines and rewriting Baby is the right move for me. He's easily one of the best villains in GT. He's pretty much the only reason why I go back to rewatch GT. Now, if the creator ever dives back into the backstory leading up to these events, I'll be covering all of it right here. Now, since the defeat of Goku, Cooler has been drifting through space in pieces. Eventually, his remains are found by the Big Getty star. It absorbs him, merges with his consciousness, and turns him into something far colder. A machine with Cooler's mind and the star's endless hunger. Now we know what happens in the main timeline. He attempts to take over New Namek and Goku and Vegeta take him out, but the question is, what happens to Cooler in the future? The timeline where Goku dies to the heart virus, Earth loses its protector, and when the androids 17 and 18 appear, the Dragon Team fall one by one. The world collapses into a shadow of what it once was, leaving only Gohan and Trunks as its final defenders. But this new story doesn't follow the history that we know. During Gohan's final stand, Trunks wakes up and rushes to save his mentor, only to share his same fate. Both warriors fall in the rain side by side. With no one left, Bulma drags their bodies home and begins working on the time machine alone. She refuses to let this be their ending. 2 years pass, and on the broken Earth, the Big Getty star arrives, latching onto the dying planet like a parasite. Cooler has returned. He's searching for Goku, ready to fulfill his revenge, but instead he finds two twins walking through the ruins, and a world already torn apart. Android 17 sees him first and mistakes him for Frieza, attempting to cure his boredom by taking him on, but being mistaken for his little brother only enrages him, sending us into the first battle of the story. Now, this is a solid foundation for the story, and even with minimal dialogue or transitions between the characters, the story itself is strong enough to carry your attention to each section. Cooler's power, fueled by the Big Getty star, overwhelms Android 17, and he drags him through the shattered cities, humiliating him as 17 fades off. And when Android 18 sees her brother fall, she jumps in for the second battle of this mission, only to share the same fate. Cooler ends this battle, destroying both androids with a supernova.
A waste of my time.
After the dust settles, Cooler senses something else. A type of energy just popped back into this world. Something that wasn't here just moments before. Bulma has returned from the past. The mission successful. She's delivered the heart medicine to Goku and ensured that he lives on to fight the androids. But listening in on her celebration, Cooler learns everything. He appears before her, kills her, and takes the time machine for himself. If Goku is alive in another timeline, then he will chase him there. He will finally have his revenge. The next battle takes us to May 12th. at 10 a.m., age 767, the day the androids attack. But there's something different here. Bulma's interference has already changed the course of events that we're used to. Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan have destroyed Android 19 and now they've cornered Dr. Gero. But just as they move in, Cooler descends from the sky, and with him this timeline's Big Getty Star. His presence is already unsettling as he comes barreling in ready to take out Goku, immediately recognizing it as Cooler but assuming Gero interfered and made him an android too. Before the cast can ask more questions, Cooler starts the fight. Before the next match starts, Goku orders Gohan to run as the fight is going to be too dangerous for the young Saiyan. The battle starts, and after you deal some damage to Goku, the heart virus strikes mid-battle. His energy crashes, his body starts to fail, and Cooler begins to finally get his revenge, but before the finishing blow lands, Gohan rushes in and kicks Cooler away, doing anything he can to save his father. But this act of bravery doesn't last long. After you take out Gohan's HP bar, Cooler begins to charge a supernova to destroy him, but just like years prior, Piccolo leaps in and takes the blast, saving Gohan but dying in the process. Earth loses its Guardian and its Dragon Balls, setting the heroes up for a very difficult battle ahead. Enraged, Goku forces his failing heart to keep beating. At the finale of this match, we are met with a roar that shakes the battlefield. Goku surges into a Super Saiyan. He launches a massive Kamehameha, pouring the last of his strength into the blast. It engulfs Cooler completely, tearing through his metal shell and wiping him from existence, or so they believe. No one notices what's going on around them. Goku defeated one Cooler, but rows of them start to pour in, and we then spend the last half beating Goku as he continues to try and fight back while also dealing with the heart virus. Eventually this leads to a massive death ball that swallows him whole, vaporizing Earth's mightiest hero in an instant. After now getting up, Gohan flees from the battlefield and hopes to regroup with the others and try to make a game plan. Meanwhile, in the chaos, Dr. Gero attempts to escape. He runs towards his lab, desperate to awaken androids 17 and 18 as his final trump card, but he never makes it. The metal coolers cut him off, severing his path and eliminating him. And that's where the story stops. It looks like the original creator never came back to finish it, which isn't uncommon, but it's still a little disappointing considering how much potential is left on the table. Gohan is alive, Vegeta is alive, and now you got two massive threats in Cell and Cooler on a collision course. Goku still knows about the Room of Spirit and Time, and with King Kai's help, he could easily guide someone there with Gohan to prepare for what's coming. Now, even with it unfinished, what we got is generally a treat. Cooler interfering in the future timelines isn't something you see often, and removing Trunks from the picture adds real tension. Now, this episode dropped on 11/8/2024, and at this point it's unlikely we'll see a continuation. But there's clearly room to expand this, and if anyone in the community wants to pick it up and run with it, the groundwork is already there. This next one finds us in the Tournament of Power. Kefla has just fused, and Goku is staring down something he can't quite manage. Even in Super Saiyan Blue, he's only holding his place in the fight. The fight is looking like it's slipping further and further out of his reach as Kefla settles into her new strength. This is usually the point where everything shifts, where Goku reaches into Ultra Instinct and changes the direction of the battle. But before that can happen, Vegeta enters the fray. He's pushed past his own limits, but against the fusion, he can't even land a clean hit. Kefla is finally in tune with her own power, and she begins to beat down on the prince. From the sideline, Shin asks for a request. The Grand Priest gives the green light, and Shin tosses the Potara into the arena. And while Vegeta is visibly disgusted by the idea, he knows the alternative is erasure. He complies, and the void trembles as Vegito is born once again.
So I swore I'd never merge bodies with you again.
The shift in power is immediate. You're given a massive damage boost here, and Vegito spends the first half of the fight simply toying with Kefla. She's throwing everything she has at him, but Vegito stays in his base form, dodging with a smirk. She begins to get mad. She wants him to transform, to meet her in his blue form. But Vegito, remembering the drain and the premature defusion against Zamasu, refuses. He opts for a standard Super Saiyan transformation instead. Kefla pushes herself into a frenzy to keep up, but Vegito remains the dominant force. You can see the frustration building in her. In a final desperate play, she pours the last of her energy into a massive blast. Vegito meets it head on with a final Kamehameha, erasing her attack and blasting her straight out of the tournament. With 17 minutes left on the clock and nearly an hour of fusion time remaining, Vegito turns his gaze toward the center of the ring, locked onto Jiren. Now, this is one of those setups that feels like it's waiting for a continuation. The dialogue throughout the fight already does a lot to define Kefla's mindset, especially how her confidence shifts as the match goes on. Taking that same approach into a Vegito and Jiren fight would be a blast. We're left with the remaining question. Is Vegito enough to take down the Pride Trooper, or will the two eventually defuse and be forced to return to their original course of action? It's a promising take on the finale that keeps that tension high, and hopefully it gets a sequel later down the road. Now, this next entry takes place over the span of 3 separate missions and completely redirected my expectations of where the narrative was headed. We start with Shenron being summoned to revive the heavy hitters, Frieza, Cell, and Kid Buu, who immediately begin laying waste to Earth. Goku teleports in to contain the damage, but midway through his struggling bout with the powered up Kid Buu, Vegeta arrives to effortlessly wipe the floor with him. Just as you think you're setting into a standard cleanup mission, the real threat reveals itself. A figure resembling Goku appears, and obliterates Frieza with a single blast. But then, things take a surreal turn. Vegeta suddenly swaps sides and begins hunting us down. At first glance it feels like a familiar Goku Black scenario, but the truth is much more insane. This isn't Zamasu, it's Dr. Wheelo, who's been jumping dimensions after successfully stealing Goku's body in another universe. To make matters worse, he's accompanied by a specialized android version of Vegeta known as a Bioman, who can shift his appearance between Z Vegeta and Baby Vegeta. The match escalates as our universe Vegeta jumps in to help Goku hold the line, but in a desperate move, Bioman absorbs Wheelo Goku to reach a terrifying new phase. This new foe becomes an immovable wall. We can't even scratch him. It forces the heroes into a corner where Vegeta realizes that fusion is the only way to win this bout. Piccolo steps in to stall the android, waiting nearby in case he was needed. In the background, Gogeta is formed. The tide flips instantly. Within moments, the android falls. The fusion separates, but from beneath the debris, Wheelo's primary mechanical body emerges, fully intact and reinforced. However, the exhaustion of the fight sets in after the diffusion, and the creator takes a genius approach here by stripping Goku and Vegeta of all their abilities, including flight and their skills, perfectly conveying how physically spent they are. Piccolo telepathically calls out to Gohan, Goten, and Trunks, and within moments they arrive as reinforcements. Gohan rushes in to shield his father but is struck down almost immediately, and in anger, Goten fires a Kamehameha that fails to make an impact on Dr. Wheelo. Trunks tells the other young Saiyan that they need to fuse against the machine, but despite the power of Gotenks, it ends with a similar result. The finale becomes a high-stake gamble. Vegeta tells Goku to begin gathering energy for a Spirit Bomb. You're left alone against Wheelo, holding the line as Goku gathers the energy he needs. But when the attack is finally released, Wheelo withstands it. In a brilliant bit of foresight, it's revealed that Piccolo had Dende coordinate with the Namekians to summon Purunga as a backup as they use the dragon to restore Goku's strength. Now back at full strength, he powers up to Super Saiyan 3 and the remaining Z-Fighters lend what strength they have left into Goku. Goku then drives through the metal shell of Wheelo and ends the battle with a Dragon Fist, saving the planet once again. We open on the day Frieza destroys planet Vegeta. Unlike the timelines we're used to, this version of Paragus sends his son away to a random planet in the universe to escape King Vegeta. Broly ends up on Earth, arriving right alongside Goku, but their paths never cross. Without a Grandpa Gohan-like figure to find him, Broly becomes a ghost of the wilderness. He lives off the land, staying completely off the radar and inadvertently avoiding every major catastrophe the Z-Warriors have faced. We pick back up with Broly on the day that Frieza and King Cold arrive. Their ship lands in the same wasteland Broly has been living in. King Cold immediately recognizes him as a Saiyan born with a high power level. Frieza, still haunted by his defeat on Namek, isn't taking any chances and moves to eliminate the threat immediately. Just as the killing blow is about to land, Goku arrives via instant transmission, pulling Broly out of harm's way under the impression he's just another innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. The pair are disbanded by Goku and Trunks, and Goku asks Piccolo for a senzu bean, bringing Broly back, and everyone is left questioning why his power feels so high. Broly himself feels a strange, unexplainable pull towards Goku, a flicker of a memory he can't quite grasp. The Sun family take him in, and as the 3-year training period for the androids begin, Broly becomes the ultimate catalyst for the team's growth. We see a 3-way training spar, where you're swapping between Gohan and Broly as they pressure Goku, eventually forcing Gohan to tap into the Super Saiyan just to bridge that gap. Watching Goku and Gohan ascend completely shatters Broly's understanding of power. Goku eventually tells him to stand down and let's go home, but both Gohan and Broly want to keep going. Now at the same time, the android events begin to shift. Cell reaches the androids much earlier than expected and achieves his perfect form far sooner. Without the gradual rise in the Saiyan strength leading into the Cell games, he immediately sets his sight on Goku. Cell ambushes the trio during their training. Broly leaps in to protect his new friends, and while his growth alongside Goku has made him a formidable opponent, he's still very much outclassed. Goku steps in, putting up a desperate fight reminiscent of the clash in the original anime, but the sheer power gap is too wide. As Goku and Gohan are beaten into unconsciousness, Broly, barely able to process the sight of the only people who have ever shown him kindness being broken, finally snaps. He transforms here into the legendary Super Saiyan. From there, the fight shifts completely in his favor. Cell is unable to respawn and the battle ends with his destruction.
I'm going to bathe in your blood. Die! It's over! Struggle all you want. In the end, you'll still die. This is the end!
After everything settles, the Z-Fighters begin to realize that Broly is a Saiyan who has been hiding an incredible amount of power all this time. How he ended up on Earth still remains a mystery. Broly commits himself to protecting his new home, yet that lingering feeling regarding Goku remains. The creator is still actively developing this thread, and I'll be covering the update at the second it drops. I love the direction for Broly. He carries this gentle, misunderstood energy that we saw in Kale in Dragon Ball Super, though I do think the story could benefit from some added cutscenes to flesh out how Cell moves so quickly in the shadows. It's a fascinating what if that leaves us wondering, will this friendship hold, or is the villain we know still waiting to emerge? For years, Frieza sat at the absolute peak of the universe, a powerhouse whose authority spanned across various planets and different solar systems. His reality didn't fracture until Namek, where his worst nightmare finally stared him down face to face. We know this story very well. It's the most iconic fight in the Dragon Ball series and one of the most iconic fights in media. But this story explores a timeline where that fight takes a much darker route. You take control of Frieza as he faces the Super Saiyan of legend. At first, you're fighting an uphill battle in your final form, and even after pushing into that bulky 100% full power state, you still pale in comparison to Goku's overwhelming golden light. The first divergence happens at that moment. The moment of Frieza's greatest desperation. As everything seems to be lost, something changes. Now, instead of losing himself to a blind rage or a sloppy self-destructive finish, Frieza reaches deep into his own biological potential. Facing death at the hands of his worst nightmare, he finds something buried within his DNA and forces an ascension. He emerges in this fight in a golden form years before he was ever meant to. He's confused at what's occurred just as much as Goku, but he instantly seizes control of the battlefield and ends the Saiyan threat once and for all. Playing through this is incredible. The first two stages are genuinely difficult, pushing your skills to the limit against an opponent who feels almost untouchable. The reward for surviving that onslaught is the transformation, where the power gap becomes so immense that the gameplay shifts into a total power fantasy. I'm also very fascinated by where this story goes next. Frieza would obviously head straight to Earth to tie up loose ends, leaving the remaining Z-Fighters to scramble for the plan to either hide or face a foe that originally rivaled the Super Saiyan God. Even without the months of training he had in the original series, this version of Frieza would likely still dwarf any of the major villains we know. At this point in history, there's simply nobody left to stand in his way. Even with this being a shorter custom battle, the story leaves you wanting more while remaining remarkably satisfied with its conclusion. It's a great reminder that sometimes even the greatest stories don't need to expand more than necessary to leave a very lasting impact. We are returning back to a timeline we touched on a video a while ago. To get everyone caught up to speed, Gohan decided to take his training more seriously, seeking out Whis to undergo the exact same regimen as his father. He wants to make sure he can protect his family from the kind of universe-ending threats that constantly target Earth, resulting in him infusing God Ki directly into his ultimate state. During a match with Beerus, Gohan picks up on a terrifyingly familiar key signature echoing across the galaxy. Someone has gathered the Dragon Balls and revived Cell, and that massive surge of energy immediately puts the rest of the cast on high alert. Goku and Vegeta rush straight to the source, confronting the newly resurrected android. Cell makes his motives clear. He wants a rematch with Gohan. The two Saiyans transform into Super Saiyan Blue and prepare for the match. Cell quickly recognizes he can't keep the pace with these divine powers on his own. As Goku and Vegeta launch a combined Final Flash and Kamehameha, the android stands his ground. He's been heavily modified to absorb raw ki, taking the devastating attack head on and completely absorbing the blast. Consuming that divine energy causes his power to spike astronomically, pushing his ki to a level far beyond the Saiyan duo. Just as Cell cracks his neck and prepares for the next round, the cavalry arrives. Androids 17 and 18 look to settle their own score with their former captor, but Cell swats them away effortlessly. Krillin attempts to intervene to save his wife, only to find himself completely paralyzed by Cell's death beam. Piccolo's attempt is next, but he meets the exact same fate, getting knocked out without Cell even breaking a sweat. Vegeta attempts to force his way back into the fight, but the God Ki Cell has absorbed makes his defense impenetrable, and within moments the prince is left out for the count, leaving Goku as the last man standing. They continue the struggle, but it's a losing battle. Goku's strikes are effectively bouncing off the android. Just before the finishing blow can land, Gohan touches down on the battlefield, telling his father to stand aside. Cell's long-awaited revenge can finally begin, but his satisfaction is short-lived. This is the Gohan he remembers. The hybrid Saiyan is now able to effortlessly parry Cell's assaults and reciprocate with even greater force. The challenge actually ignites Cell's warrior spirit, but his inherent arrogance starts to become his undoing. He is completely unable to grasp the sheer scope of Gohan's progression. While they both seem to be reaching a point of exhaustion, Gohan has much more in him than Cell does. The realization that he's come this far only to face another failure sends Cell into a blind frenzy. He begins charging an apocalyptic beam ready to wipe out the entire universe, but the rest of the Z-Warriors refuse to stay down. They launch an onslaught of Ki Blast, forcing Cell to dissolve his own attack just to survive the barrage. Seeing the window of opportunity, Goku and Vegeta push their pride aside and fuse into Gogeta.
I didn't want to have to resort to this again! Bring it!
The fused warrior dives into the middle of the battlefield, keeping Cell completely occupied and off balance. This creates the opening for Gohan, who has been quietly gathering every last drop of his energy in the background. Once he gets the signal, Gohan lunges back into the arena and unleashes a final definitive Kamehameha. Gohan pours everything he has left into the strike, vaporizing Cell and his core and ending the threat for good. The creator has a plethora of more stories, all contained in the same exact universe, so stick around, we're going to be checking out those in a later video. This next scenario takes us back to the Tournament of Power, with one major roster change. Instead of turning to Frieza, Goku remembers how quickly Cell was able to evolve during their original battle. Knowing that those Saiyan cells mean his potential is practically limitless, the decision is made. Cell is resurrected for a 24-hour fight for Universe 7. As the teams scatter across the arena, Cell attempts to reform that old family dynamic by following androids 17 and 18, but both of them want absolutely nothing to do with him, and quickly ditch him to find their own opponents. Left to his own devices, Cell eventually crosses paths with the Trio de Danger. He intercepts Goku's fight, taking over the match himself. The bio-android's power scales rapidly as the battle intensifies, and he eventually knocks all three of the brothers outside the ring. His victory is short-lived. Brienne and her squad immediately launch an assault on Cell, who reciprocates with a verbal and physical lashing, belittling their concept of love before sending him out of the ring. The brief moment of silence that follows gives Goku a chance to acknowledge just how much Cell has progressed in such a short window of time, but the praise is cut short when Frost blindsides them. At first, Cell is stunned, genuinely believing he's looking at a modified version of Frieza. Cell's exponential growth has made him a monster, and he dispatches Frost with relative ease. Cell's continuous victories over the other universes eventually draws the attention of the Pride Troopers. Sensing the android's malicious nature, Dispo rushes in, and Cell quickly finds himself unable to track the troopers' extreme speed, forcing Goku to intervene to even the odds out, and together they manage to overcome Dispo. However, before Cell can secure the elimination, Jiren saves his teammate, sending Cell flying with a single blow. That massive power gap between them bruises Cell's ego. Even with his rapid growth, he's still standing in the shadow of a being who views him as completely powerless. As the tournament reaches its peak, the narrative follows the familiar path of Goku and Jiren's clash. While that's happening, Cell finds himself locked into a battle with Kale and Caulifla. He manages to outmaneuver Caulifla, and true to his nature, he begins to torture her while she's down. The sight of her friend's suffering and her own perceived helplessness triggers something in Kale. She snaps, entering her legendary Super Saiyan state, and using Cell as a literal ragdoll. Once again, Goku has to step in to keep the unstable Kale back, but her energy eventually begins to erupt across the arena, forcing Jiren to intervene and silence her with one punch. Seeing someone exert that kind of absolute authority over a battlefield enrages Cell. Not only does he fear that power, but he craves it. It seems as if this is still actively being worked on, but I would love to see where this would go from here. Now this next one is an interesting take on an old story. The story follows the events of Battle of Gods for a while, with Bulma hosting a massive birthday celebration at Capsule Corp. Almost every member of the Dragon Team is present except for Goku, having stayed behind on King Kai's planet to train. In the time since the group's journey through the Demon Realm, we see a new dynamic forming between Majin Buu and Majin Buu. Their bond feels like a classic big brother-little brother relationship, and the creator did a fantastic job establishing that rapport. While they lounge at the party, Vegeta is nearby pushing his limits until a telepathic warning from King Kai cuts through his focus. Beerus, the god of destruction, is approaching. He's already defeated Goku and is now en route to Earth in search of the Super Saiyan God. While their initial encounter happens off screen, it's safe to assume Beerus neutralized Goku during his Super Saiyan 3 transformation. As for why he didn't utilize Super Saiyan 4, we'll dive into that further along. Vegeta rushes back to warn the others, but the arrival is already in motion. Beerus greets Vegeta, reminding him of their encounter during the Saiyan's childhood. Facing him here once again, Vegeta is struck by the memory of just how terrifying the Destroyer's presence truly is. Beerus takes notice of the festivities and joins in after learning it's Bulma's birthday. When he questions the prince about the Super Saiyan God, Vegeta is forced to admit he has no knowledge of such a being. The god of destruction is welcomed into the banquet, and for a moment that peace holds. The stability shatters when Majin Buu accidentally eats Beerus' wasabi roll, a single mistake that effectively signs the Earth's death warrant. Now enraged, Beerus decides the planet must be destroyed. Now this is where the creator's ingenuity really shines. Utilizing the mechanics of Sparking Zero to mimic a Marvel vs. Capcom style assist system, Majin Buu acts as a backup for Ku, appearing on the field to unleash his super attacks whenever the player calls for aid. The strategy here is to save those assists for when you truly need to escape a pinch. Once you use up all the supers and Buu's ultimate, Beerus will strike down both Majin Buu and Ku. Frustrated by the destruction of her party, Bulma confronts Beerus only for the god to reflectively strike her down. In a departure from the film where he simply powers up Super Saiyan 2, this version of the prince descends directly into Super Saiyan 3 to launch his assault. Now the objective here is to inflict as much damage as you can before Vegeta's sparking meter expires. Once that window closes, Beerus becomes an unstoppable force. Every punch he lands on Vegeta, your ki will be drained, leaving Vegeta almost completely vulnerable once everything's ran out. Eventually the exhaustion takes its toll and Vegeta collapses. Before Beerus can deliver a final blow, Goku returns to the battlefield. Goku reveals his Super Saiyan 4 transformation. He attempts to bluff the Destroyer, claiming this primal state is the Super Saiyan God. That distinct red tint of the fur and the hair is enough to convince Beerus that this might be the warrior from his premonitions. The battle resumes with a new intensity as Goku performs significantly better than his previous encounter. It appears during their first bout on King Kai's planet, Goku simply wasn't given the opportunity to tap into this level of power, since this seems to be Beerus' first time seeing this form. But even with this new primal power, the gap still remains too wide. A battered Vegeta, realizing Goku's stamina is fading, recalls the Destroyer's fixation about a Super Saiyan God. He breaks away from the battlefield to summon Shenron. Once the dragon reveals the requirements of the ritual, Vegeta takes the mantle for himself. The Super Saiyan God rises. The two rivals combine their strength to challenge Beerus in one last final stand. In this last battle, you're swapped between both Goku and Vegeta every few seconds, forcing you to utilize Goku's pressure to create openings for Vegeta's ultimate attacks. Their coordination is seamless. Two warriors who know each other's every move synchronize their efforts to protect their home. Beerus, now becoming generally annoyed by their persistence, takes flight into the upper atmosphere, intent on ending the world then and there. In a desperate final gamble, Goku and Vegeta unleash a combined assault, a Super Saiyan 4 Kamehameha and a God-infused Final Flash. The resulting explosion rocks the stratosphere, sending the combatants crashing back down on the grounds of Capsule Corp. Beerus stands up without a scratch, admitting he was never fighting at full capacity. He warns the Saiyans to continue their training and promises to return for a genuine battle with the Super Saiyan God. The scenario concludes on a light note, with Goku trying to claim the glory while Vegeta reminds him that Beerus' final challenge was directed specifically at him. I love the idea of Goku and Vegeta taking two separate paths. Keeping the Super Saiyan 4 transformation with Goku fits his Wukong roots, and giving the God form to the Prince is something I think no one is complaining about. Our story begins on a familiar Earth, one that spent years suffocating under the reign of the androids. The weight of that world rested entirely on Trunks, who eventually shattered the cycle of terror thanks to his training in the past. We fast forward several years beyond the fall of Cell. Peace has allowed the World Martial Arts Tournament to return, and Trunks decides to test his skills and take time off of fixing destroyed cities to join in the festivities. However, while waiting for his match, the atmosphere shifts. He spots a towering figure with curved horns and pointed ears, Deborah. Even from a distance, the Demon King radiates an ominous heavy ki. In this reality, the King of the Demon Realm has entered the tournament himself, hunting for massive energy signatures required to resurrect Majin Buu. Fate sees it that these two meet in the very first round. Trunks enters the ring with caution, suppressing his power to keep the arena intact, but Deborah has no such reservations. The Demon King unleashes a wave of carnage, using the chaos to land a heavy sucker punch on the distracted Trunks. He begins to mock the Saiyan, demanding that he shows his true golden form. As the stadium begins to tremble under the mounting pressure, Bulma and a mysterious figure shout from the sidelines, desperate for Trunks to keep his cool. The second half of this match shifts into high gear as Trunks stops holding back and putting them on an equal footing. Deborah, sensing the shift of the battle, plays dirty. He aims a massive blast at the crowded stands, forcing Trunks to intercept the attack and take the full force of the explosion to save the spectators.
You fool! Perhaps you could challenge me with such little strength.
With a sinister grin, Deborah retreats, issuing a final ultimatum: find him before he wipes out humanity. Trunks takes to the skies in pursuit, but he isn't alone. From the shadows, the Supreme Kai finally emerges, chasing after the young hero to explain the nightmare that has just been unleashed. Now in this timeline, Shin never had the chance for a formal introduction. The tournament's explosive start forced his hand. Deborah lands in a chain of nearby islands, leveling the civilizations Trunks spent years rebuilding. It's a direct insult to everything the warrior of the future fought for. And with the fate of the world once again hanging by a thread, Trunks is ready to fight with every ounce of power he has. This custom battle introduces a very interesting gimmick, using the timer as a stand-in for Buu's energy meter. The longer the duel with Deborah drags on, the more energy is funneled towards Majin Buu's seal. If the timer hits 0, the monster awakens. Babidi's plan succeeds and the future timeline is effectively erased alongside Trunks. To secure the good ending, you have to throw everything Trunks has at the Demon King. Trunks taps into his full power, unleashing a final desperate assault that seemingly incinerates Deborah where he stands. With the threat neutralized, Trunks returns to the tournament grounds, only to find the event in shambles and cancelled due to the opening round carnage. But that peace is just an illusion. Deep within the rubble of the islands, a battered Deborah clings to life. He isn't finished. Instead, he begins plotting to recruit new subordinates under Babidi's spell to sow enough chaos to finish the job. This is where the creator leaves us for now. Now, it's been years since I played Shin Budokai Another Road, but this scenario captures that exact same future Buu saga energy. Now that the roster is massive and the lore is expanded, I'm genuinely curious to see where the creator takes this narrative next. Now the next match pulls us backwards through time, returning to the one most pivotal confrontations in Dragon Ball history, Goku vs Frieza on Namek. But the version of events isn't content with simply recreating the familiar beats. From the very beginning, the tone feels more fragile, more uncertain. Goku's pushed further than he ever was in the manga, completely being overwhelmed by Frieza's final form in ways that feels deliberate rather than exaggerated. He's knocked aside, driven into the dirt, and forced into a position where victory no longer feels inevitable. Just as Frieza prepares to finish the job, Piccolo intervenes, slamming the tyrant away and buying Goku something far more valuable than space: time. Time to breathe and time to gather himself. Most importantly, time for the Spirit Bomb to form without desperation rushing the process. Now what follows isn't the traditional pumped up boss fight battle, built around domination, but one that's really well rooted in survival. You're asked to endure here, to stay upright, to steal moments where you can, dealing small bursts of damage while waiting for something greater to take shape in the background. Health isn't restored on either party, so it's very important to do some damage and save yourself for what comes next. And when that next phase begins, the Spirit Bomb is ready, but even that doesn't unfold as expected. Frieza meets it head on with his Death Ball, pouring his rage and pride into this clash. The resulting collision twists the outcome, turning Goku's final hope against him.
Your energy with me for a Spirit Bomb! Done!
You see, I'm able to survive in the vacuum of space. But can you? I think not. Now perish along with this planet!
You won't beat me!
What?
Now when the dust settles, Goku's gone. The battlefield falls silent. Frieza laughs it off as dismissing the attack as a failure, while the rest of the group is left with the unspoken conclusion that they've lost him. Piccolo, exhausted and running on instinct alone, makes one last attempt to stop Frieza, pouring the remainder of his strength into an effort that feels more symbolic than strategic, but it changes nothing. But as despair settles in, Piccolo senses something Frieza doesn't. An unfamiliar presence, steady and unreadable. From the crater below, Goku rises. There's no declaration, no speech, no visible emotion. Goku awakens in the Ultra Instinct state. His expression is vacant, his movements stripped of excess thought. The contrast is immediate and unsettling. Where Frieza fights with fury and ego, Goku moves with quiet certainty. The battle that follows is completely one-sided, not because of spectacle, but because of the restraint. Every motion is efficient, every strike is purposeful. Frieza throws everything he has left into the final attack, a desperate attempt to erase what he no longer understands. But Goku doesn't react with panic or triumph, he responds with precision, answering Frieza's last gamble with a Kamehameha that ends the fight and wipes the tyrant from the Namek entirely.
This is the end for you!
When it's over, the remaining warriors regroup stunned by what they just witnessed. No one fully understands what Goku accessed or what it cost him to reach it. The moment lingers as a question more than a conclusion. Great base to build off of if ever wanted to make a sequel to this one. Now as a concept, the scenario is incredibly strong. Feels like something lifted straight from a Xenoverse parallel quest, but given the time and space to breathe. The tension is genuine, especially on a first playthrough, where the structure makes you question whether you failed or missed an alternative outcome. For a while, it generally feels like Piccolo might have been expected to finish the fight, or that Goku's loss was permanent. Instead, everything resolves with intent and clarity. If there's one addition that could have elevated further, it would have been a deeper narrative framing. Perhaps King Kai reflecting on Goku's growth during his training, offering context for how such a state became possible at this point in the timeline. Now we're not finished with Broly just yet. This next story follows Broly as he travels to the peaceful field of New Namek, seeking a sanctuary to finally quell the tempest of his inner rage. In his search for clarity, he turns to Elder Mori, whose ancient magic allows Broly to confront his greatest fear, the demon within. What Mori offers isn't training in the way that Broly understands it. He forces Broly to face the thing he spent his entire life running away from, to face the part that he's been trying to bury. And that vision takes the form of Dragon Ball Z Broly. As the battle unfolds, this manifestation of pure evil and fury evolves relentlessly, chipping away at Super Broly's composure. The insults this phantom spits are biting, and half of them sound like what the internet sounded like when Dragon Ball Super Broly was shown. You could feel the weight building on Broly's shoulders as the fight drags on, like he's being slowly convinced that this is all he'll ever become, that he truly is a monster. And when pushed to the edge and faced with that confrontation, he doesn't find some new form or outside answer. His thoughts turn inwards to the friends, Chilai, Lemmo, and to Goku, remembering the words that Goku had said to him right after they first met. The mere mention of the name Kakarot sends the Z reflection into a murderous frenzy, forcing Super Broly to finally stop fearing his own nature, not as something separate from him, but as something that belongs to him. When the fight ends, it doesn't feel like something has been sealed away. Actually, Broly accepts his power. As foreign and terrifying as it may feel, it's a part of who he is. He accepts what he saw, even the part that he felt is evil. He understands now that that power, even at its most volatile, can still be shaped by who he chooses to be. He awakens on the Namekian soil and thanks Mori, knowing this clarity means more to him than this elder could ever know. Now I realize the biggest hurdle in Sparking Zero is the commentary tools that can be limited or difficult to navigate. but when you dedicate the time, you can find and create gems just like this. The mechanical difficulty of the fight perfectly mirrors that grueling nature of inner work. A foundational pillar of Dragon Ball is the pursuit of self-growth, yet we often forget that the mental struggle is just as vital as the physical one. This is true for our own lives as well. Finding such a resonant theme within a custom battle was surprising and absolutely beautiful, not only for us, but also the character. Age 767, Broly survives his defeat, crashing into Earth and becoming entombed in a frozen lake. 7 years pass before Videl, Goten, and Trunks wake him up while searching for the Dragon Balls. Goten's crying acts as a catalyst that brings the monster back to life. Videl tries to step up and protect the kids, but she has no idea what she's dealing with. Broly discards her instantly, leaving her broken as Gohan senses the massive energy spike and rushes to the scene. He arrives to find Videl pulverized, and the sight of his failure to protect those that he loves triggers something deep inside.
I gotta get serious.
The rage boils over, and Gohan stands in Broly's path. Before Broly can even push his power further, Gohan lands a kick with enough force to nearly knock the legendary Saiyan out of his Super Saiyan form. That old arrogance returns as Gohan mocks him, telling the beast he remembered him being much more of a challenge. Backed into a corner, Broly snaps and unleashes his full legendary Super Saiyan power, attacking Gohan with a blind fury. Gohan still holds the advantage here, but in typical fashion, he starts to get cocky when he's in the lead. He lets the fight drag on, ignoring the history that Saiyans evolve in the heat of battle. Broly starts closing the gap, and the look on Gohan's face shifts from confidence to a genuine worry. Broly's ki is continuing to rise even further. Realizing he let things go on far too long, Gohan starts charging his final attack as Broly's ki continues to skyrocket.
I'm putting it all. Fight time is over. Special beam cannon!
One addition you don't usually find in these battles is the inclusion of multiple endings, and this scenario actually has a few different paths. If you're skilled enough to avoid taking damage, Videl can actually beat Broly herself. You can also finish him off early as Gohan to trigger a different ending where he keeps his focus and never lets his cockiness take over. Moving the timeline around makes this a lot more interesting. This movie would have had to take place after the Buu saga ends. Either Gohan defeated Majin Buu before he was able to absorb the boys, or the story progressed like normal. Now Gohan would have almost certainly let this power slip away once he returned to his books, which is just the standard cycle for him. The real question is whether he can actually pull this form back out of the bag when Beerus eventually makes his way to the Earth. If he can't tap into that beast state on command, he's going to be in a lot of trouble when the God of Destruction shows up looking for a challenge. This next adventure jumps us years ahead into the Super timeline. Pan is now a teenager, and after spending her whole life being told that her father was once the strongest around, she decides it's time to test if that reputation still holds up. She tells Gohan to meet her for a training session, but what follows is a brutal wake-up call given to Gohan. Pan completely overwhelms him. The fight barely feels competitive, and by the end of it, he's left battered on the ground while she walks away, dismissing him as weak. It's embarrassing, a clear statement of how far he's drifted from who he used to be. The story then shifts us into the next phase, using the in-game tables to transition us back to Piccolo. Gohan explains what happened, admitting why he's come back to train, and Piccolo accepts without hesitation, but there's a warning attached to it. If Gohan gets careless again, there won't be a chance to recover. The first phase of their match serves as a reintroduction. Gohan struggles, takes damage, and slowly finds his footing again until Super Saiyan becomes available. There's commentary woven into the fight itself, with Gohan acknowledging that familiar rhythm returning, but mid-match that fight is interrupted. Vegeta arrives having watched the match unfold, and he is visibly disgusted. To him, Gohan shouldn't be struggling here at all. If Piccolo wants to bring that boy back as a warrior, Vegeta argues that he needs to be the opponent who actually forces something out of him. And without ceremony, he shoves Piccolo aside and steps in himself. Vegeta transforms into the Super Saiyan God form and immediately begins to overwhelm Gohan. The added dialogue during the fight feels sharp and character accurate, especially with Vegeta's constant reminders of how far Gohan has fallen. Eventually, Gohan is pushed far enough that something finally clicks. His ultimate form becomes available once again, and the shift is almost immediate. Within moments, the momentum flips completely. Gohan drops Vegeta with ease, ending the fight almost as quickly as it began. But instead of anger, Vegeta gets back up smiling, impressed. Seeing that kind of growth happen mid-battle is exactly what he wanted. Gohan has found his footing once again. But before that moment can settle, another presence arrives. Goku, sensing the sunrise in his son's energy while training with Oob, drops in ready to see just how far Gohan has really come. The third phase is where the design really comes together. Up to this point, Gohan hasn't recovered any health, which means every mistake has lasting consequences here. Goku hits hard, and without careful play, the fight can unravel quickly. From there, the scenario splits depending on how you handle the match. If you defeat Goku before the special conditions activates, the story resolves quietly. Gohan returns to Pan only to be beaten again almost immediately. Goku reflects on the outcome afterwards, acknowledging that Gohan still isn't ready to face what lies ahead. It's a very straightforward conclusion framed as a reminder that progress hasn't fully settled in yet, but the second route asks more of the player. By dealing enough damage and responding to Goku's call to transform, the next event unfolds. Gohan ascends into his beast form, and that fight immediately shifts. Goku answers by entering Ultra Instinct, continuing his test of Gohan's ability. What follows finally feels like a real exchange. Both fighters are completely absorbed, pushing each other without restraint, losing awareness of everything beyond the battle itself. You barely recover any health here, so it's very easy to be knocked out if you're not paying attention. That narrow focus though is what ultimately costs them both. Pan arrives furious that Gohan forgot about her in the city, calling out both him and Goku for their behavior. In that moment, Gohan's attention slips, and Goku capitalizes, landing the final blow and knocking him out cold. The branching outcomes work especially well here. It echoes that older Tenkaichi style scenario where missing a trigger leads to a different resolution. Having two complete conclusions adds strong replay value, while the mid-fight dialogue reinforces Gohan's frustration and urgency as he works to find his footing again. Both endings tap into that familiar Toriyama rhythm. Genuine character growth interrupted by very human comedic moments. The scenario understands the series' balance, and it follows through from start to finish. Wasteland on Earth is silent, as Gohan and Vegeta lie defeated. Majin Buu has absorbed Goku, and now the Pink Menace stands as the strongest in this universe. With no one left to challenge him, the entire galaxy is his for the taking. That is, until a new presence descends from the heavens. A Kai who has been watching the chaos on Earth. He's heard stories of the Pink Majin events that occurred in the Demon Realm years ago, but now here he is face to face with them. Buu assumes it's just Shin again, but Zamasu makes his presence known, declaring his mission to wipe out everyone and restart the universe in his image. He charges at Majin Buu, relying entirely on his immortal body to carry him through. Buu is clearly the stronger of the two, but the Kai's martial arts training lets him dance around the Majin's punches, at least until his overconfidence leaves him wide open for a massive punch, leaving Zamasu dazed and gasping for air. Goku Black loses his patience, watching from the sidelines, and dives into the battle, determined to end the Majin himself. This new fighter is a total anomaly to Buu. He can't believe that this is Goku, as he's already absorbed him, but this just makes Black more angry. He'll start the Zero Mortals plan with Majin Buu. The fight's a challenge, but even with Black's aggressive style, Buu's regeneration and magical abilities are far too much to overcome. Goku Black gets hit with a deadly blow, and while he's recovering, Buu plays his trump card. Remembering the talk of immortality, he uses a piece of his body hidden in the mountain cracks to strike. He absorbs Zamasu, leaving the universe to deal with a new immortal Majin. With Zamasu now part of his being, the only definitive way to put Buu down, I'd imagine, would be a Hakai, but that's easier said than done. Having Piccolo's tactical mind allows him to anticipate that exact threat, and plan counterattacks before a God of Destruction can even make a move. The Time Ring also takes him to a new level of danger. He has the freedom to hop between timelines at will, turning him into a predator that can strike anywhere in history and vanish before anyone can pin him down. This makes him a multiversal threat that could potentially outrun even the gods. The only ones I can actually see getting rid of him would be the Time Patrol.
Now this next one is a full take of the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie done in the GT universe. The dust has barely settled from the war with the Shadow Dragons when King Kai breaks the silence. He detects a massive chaotic energy that's somehow gone unnoticed during the collapse of Omega Shenron. When Goku and Vegeta descend to investigate, they find an impossible ghost from the past. Frieza has clawed his way out of hell once again, but this time he's brought a brainwashed secret weapon, Broly. Vegeta immediately dismisses Broly as a relic of a dead era, but he's caught completely off guard when the legendary warrior hammers him into a nearby mountain. That disrespect triggers the prince's pride and he flares into a full power Super Saiyan 4. It's a chilling moment for Frieza, seeing the power gap between his pet and the Saiyan elite is nothing short of a chasm. Vegeta eventually grows bored with this one-sided beatdown and charges a final Shine attack to end it. Goku attempts to stop him as it feels almost cruel to harm someone so far behind them. As the light of the blast dissipates, the nightmare begins. Broly survives the beam and forces himself into a Super Saiyan state, and suddenly genuine concern starts to creep into the minds of the heroes. Now Broly is trading equal blows with the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, matching him punch for punch. Goku steps in to test his own mettle, but he quickly realizes the rate of Broly's growth is unnatural. In a fit of pure blinding rage, Broly shatters Frieza's mental shackles and ascends to his legendary form. He lets off a blast so devastating it forces a tactical retreat, leaving Goku and Vegeta with no choice but to fuse. Now with the Saiyans off the field, Frieza's left alone with the monster he tried to tame. It's a moment of pure karma. Frieza, who was recently getting toyed with a base form Kid Goku, is now face to face with a force that dwarfs even Goku's peak. Broly doesn't even see him as a threat, he treats the galactic tyrant like a plaything. But just before Broly can deliver that killing blow, Gogeta arrives for the second round. Broly expects another retreat, but what he meets instead is a level of power that completely eclipses his own.
It's over. Time to say goodbye now. Here comes my ultimate attack. This is the end.
Despite Broly's infinite potential, he simply cannot bridge the gap to a Super Saiyan 4 fusion. He's eventually knocked out, left unconscious, leaving Gogeta standing over him. King Kai pleads to Gogeta to finish the job, but after a tense silence, the fusion refuses. Instead, he turns his sight on a fleeing Frieza and sends him screaming back to the other world. The story ends with a quiet moment. Broly wakes up to find Goku and Vegeta offering a hand rather than a fist. Now in the original GT timeline, this is where Goku would depart with Shenron, but it seems the presence of another pure-blooded Saiyan changes that path. Maybe Goku postpones his ascension to train the new protector of Earth, or maybe the thrill of a new rival keeps him in the world of living for good. It's a brilliant reimagining that keeps the classic Z-era Broly personality while dropping him into a setting where the stakes have never been higher.
We open the story with a recap of Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Piccolo and Gohan successfully bring down Cell Max, reaching new heights of power in the process. But across the cosmos on a distant planet, the awakening of that orange Namekian form stirs a sleeping monster. The ancient Lord Slug feels the surge of his people's power from across the stars. Years later, Dende warns Piccolo of a danger approaching Earth, and both already know who it is. The legends of Slug have been passed down through the Namekian people, thought of as an urban legend until he makes his presence known when he arrives on Earth, looking to challenge the Namekian who possesses that great power. Slug looks down at Piccolo, recognizing the Demon King in his eyes, yet he's struck by how gentle this version of that warrior has become. Piccolo sees a resemblance in Slug, an evil reflection of what he used to be. He tells Slug to leave, but Slug didn't travel this far to go home empty-handed. They clash, and it's immediately clear that while Piccolo is a threat, Slug is on another level entirely. He mocks Piccolo's docile nature, and Piccolo responds that even a former Demon King can find peace. The battle rages on, and even with the orange transformation, Piccolo's on the ropes, barely managing to push Slug back enough to think. He tries to grow in size to gain an advantage, but Slug matches that ability instantly, explaining that certain Namekians use that form to truly unleash their power. The two giants trade blows until Piccolo is overwhelmed, falling back to his normal size in defeat. Slug realizes that this is the first opponent to give him a real challenge in years. He approaches the battered Piccolo and reveals the secret. Only a few Namekians can force an absorption on another, and in an instant, Piccolo is absorbed. Gohan arrives just a moment too late, and Dende has to break the news that Piccolo is gone. Gohan stares at the monster responsible for taking his mentor, realizing the only way to get his friend back is to end Slug once and for all. The forced absorption angle is a brilliant way to raise the stakes. Usually Namekian fusion is a mutual choice, so turning it into a weapon makes Slug feel like a genuine predator. Outside of that, this section is a perfect setup. It's short, but it establishes emotional stakes from the start of it, giving Lord Slug a proper introduction into the Super timeline. We've seen so many movie villains get their moments in these custom battles, and it's about time Slug gets some shine too. We start this story in an overlooked part of the timeline. Garlic Jr. has won. During his clash with Goku and Piccolo, the Dead Zone opens and swallows Earth's defenders. With the planet's strongest warriors gone, nothing remains to challenge him. After a year of Garlic Jr.'s tyrannical reign, humanity is reduced to little more than fuel for his ego, now forced to serve a ruler who cannot be killed. Much like the original timeline, Raditz touches down on a very desolate world, expecting to find his brother's conquest, but instead he finds a tyrant standing in his place. Garlic Jr. greets him with a power level so small that Raditz almost laughs, but that conversation between the two doesn't last long. The two clash and the difference in strength becomes very obvious. Raditz possesses the raw power that would normally defeat this demon, but his strikes aren't doing any long-lasting damage against an eternal body. Exploiting the stalemate, Garlic Jr. opens the Dead Zone once more, dragging the Saiyan into the same dimension that claimed Earth's heroes. We jump ahead a few years. 2 more Saiyan space pods arrive on Earth. Nappa and Vegeta were listening in and are coming down to test out this foe. Nappa's dismissive of Garlic Jr.'s low power level and deploys the Cybermen to do his dirty work, but even they fall to the supernatural resilience of this Demon King. Now it's Nappa's turn. Annoyed that something so weak continues to stand, the battle unfolds much like Raditz did. Nappa's strength dominates the battle, but the fight never moves towards an ending. Garlic Jr.'s immortality keeps him standing, and eventually the Dead Zone returns once more, claiming Nappa. Vegeta watching on as his partner begins to vanish. The final confrontation is here, and Garlic Jr. chips away at the prince, banking on his immortality to outlast a vastly superior foe. Driven to a state of almost primal rage by his inability to draw blood, Vegeta undergoes the Great Ape transformation. Garlic Jr. attempts to manifest the Dead Zone one last time, but Vegeta meets this vacuum with the sheer overwhelming pressure of his Galick Gun. The force of that blast pushing Garlic Jr. right into the void. The Dead Zone closes behind him, leaving Vegeta alone on the battlefield as the victor. The story ends with the "to be continued" on the screen. That leaves a lot of directions that this could go. Now in the anime, Garlic Jr. escaped the Dead Zone when the Makio star came nearby. That same window could appear again here. If Garlic Jr. finds his way out, the Saiyans and Earth's original defenders might be forced into an uneasy alliance just to breach the walls of that dimension. But even if they do escape, what kind of Earth would still be waiting for them? Vegeta could have likely scorched the planet out of pure spite, or maybe Frieza's taken it over as a base of operations. Since Vegeta and Frieza remain ignorant on the Dragon Ball's existence, Namek stays a very peaceful sanctuary. Now, no matter what happens next, the future is looking very different, and I really hope this story has a continuation in the future. This next match drops us right after the fight with Deborah, with Gohan struggling to maintain his composure as Vegeta begins his usual scolding of the young Saiyan. But in the middle of his lecture towards Gohan, a familiar darkness starts to cloud his psyche. The voice of his allies begging him to resist Babidi begin to fade into a dull hum as he loses consciousness. Vegeta awakens within this twisted architecture of his own mind. Here, Babidi's influence has manifested as a ghost from his past, the Saiyan Prince as he was during the Frieza era. This version of Vegeta represents pure evil, a cold man with a disregard of life, fueled by a singular obsession with being the best in the universe. The match offers a fascinating choice. You can surrender to the darkness at any moment, or you can attempt to fight the ghost of Vegeta's past. If you do try and fight, you're in for a long match. This manifestation barely takes damage, serving as a brilliant mechanical showcase of how oppressive Babidi's magic truly is. Throughout the fight, the projection belittles the prince, relentlessly trash-talking the life he's built on planet Earth. If you lose or you choose to give in, the projection shows exactly what Vegeta subconsciously believes has been holding him back. It frames his family, his friends, as a weight that has made him soft, leaving him in the dust of his rival and a shell of his true self. This will lead the player back into the normal flow of the Buu Saga. However, if you manage to win this uphill battle and resist the temptation, Vegeta undergoes a profound realization. He accepts that his bonds and the new family he's made alongside his rivalry with Goku are actually the source of his true strength. This internal victory allows him to shatter Babidi's mind control. He awakens in the real world and immediately levels a lethal blast at the wizard, effectively ending the Buu Saga before the monster can even take its first breath. You never truly know what you're going to get with these community creations, but this one was handled perfectly. It's definitely a departure from the grand scale stories we usually see on the channel, but it's just as effective, focusing instead on the internal struggle of overcoming a mental hurdle. The story actually reminds me a bit of they dive into the heart battles from Kingdom Hearts, that same feeling of confronting a darker reflection of yourself within your own psyche. Trunks successfully puts a stop to Majin Buu's revival, leaving Deborah and Babidi completely defeated. Sometime later, Trunks and Bulma receive an SOS from planet Namek. The Ground Elder used his magic to track down the power signatures of the warriors who defeated Frieza all those years ago. Desperate for help against a new monster causing chaos on their world, Bulma locks in the coordinates to new planet Namek and sends Trunks out to investigate. When he touches down, he catches two soldiers attacking a nearby Namekian village. Trunks steps in and immediately notices that this armor looks exactly like the gear worn by the Frieza Force he sliced to pieces in the past. Just like those previous soldiers, these grunts underestimate him. Trunks deals with the first one instantly, and before the remaining soldier can even process what happened, he gets blown away too. That's when the leader descends from the sky. Cooler has made his way to planet Namek hunting for the Dragon Balls. Cooler starts spouting the typical Cold Clan trash talk, but Trunks is completely unfazed. None of Cooler's initial attacks can even scratch him. Getting entirely frustrated, Cooler hurls a quick death ball, but the Saiyan stands through the blast without taking a single hit. Baffled that a mortal can possess this kind of strength, Cooler decides to transform into his final form. But Trunks isn't here to play around or waste time, so he powers straight into Super Saiyan. And that shift in energy sends a pure panic to Cooler as he finally realizes the caliber of the warrior he's dealing with. Desperate and terrified, Cooler throws every ounce of his remaining power into a massive supernova, but just like before, Trunks stands tall right through the explosion. Now tired of the match, Trunks decides it's time to end it all. With New Namek saved, Trunks becomes a local hero. It's a wild twist of fate that the son of the man who caused the Namekian people so much despair ends up being the one who rescues them from absolute extinction. Before he heads out, the Namekians grant Trunks the use of Purunga. The wish is finally made. Everyone killed by the androids is returned to life on Earth. Trunks heads back to his ship, energized to return home and see the future finally restored to the way it should be. Back on Earth, the Dragon Team materializes in the local field, completely confused about how they suddenly return to the world of the living. Bulma arrives at the landing zone to meet them, filling everyone in on exactly what Trunks managed to accomplish across the stars. Gohan is incredibly grateful, recognizing that this was the burning will of hope that kept alive that finally brought them to this hard-fought peace. While everyone else is catching up, Vegeta stands in the background taking notice of Gohan's current strength, instantly demanding a match right then and there. This spark ends up setting off the rest of the group, with everyone suddenly wanting to showcase the power they managed to stack up while training in the afterlife. Tien steps up to start the gauntlet first. Even though he's significantly stronger than he was during the android crisis, the gap between them is just too immense. Gohan is operating on an entirely different league and makes short work of him. Piccolo is up next, giving the student and mentor a chance to finally go all out against one another. Piccolo already knows he won't walk away with the win here. He even makes a comment acknowledging just how absurdly strong Gohan has become, which is proven right the second he loses the match. This leaves only one combatant left. The Prince of Saiyans flies into the ring, but because he never made it to heaven and wasn't allowed to keep his physical body in the afterlife, his power is completely frozen at the exact level it was during the android arc. That harsh reality hits him quickly that he stands no chance. He pushes into Super Saiyan thinking the extra multiplier can close the gap between him and the boy, but Gohan shows him that he's not the only one that can utilize that form. Gohan powers up and the sheer force radiating from him drives Vegeta insane with anger, realizing just how far behind everyone he's been left. In one sharp movement, Vegeta is knocked flat out on his back. From the sky, Goku finally reveals himself. He wasn't brought back to life since he died of natural causes, but he's been granted special permission to visit his friends for a little while. He wants to test his son's power before he has to head back, and Gohan is more than happy to oblige, eager to show his father exactly how far he's come. The two clash with insane power. Goku realizes early on that he can't take his son lightly, so he decides to show everyone a trick he picked up in the afterlife. He pushes straight into Super Saiyan 2, catching the entire group by surprise. But this new level doesn't intimidate Gohan. Instead, it only motivates him to fight harder. It isn't long before Goku acknowledges Gohan's incredible strength and decides to push himself even further beyond. Goku powers up and stands before them as a Super Saiyan 3. Looking at his father, Gohan suddenly realizes the massive gap in power that still exists between the two. Even with all his strength, Gohan is only able to keep up for a short time before the realization hits that he can't sustain this match or take the win. Goku leaves deeply impressed by everyone's growth. Meanwhile, Vegeta flies off from the battlefield, finally hitting his boiling point. He's been completely outclassed by the humans and his rivals, leaving him desperate to find a way to reclaim his status as the strongest. The Dragon team say their final goodbyes to Goku, knowing that when they eventually pass away from their natural causes, they'll meet him again. But until then, they finally have their lives back. Goku returns to the other world to continue tracking down stronger opponents to face. But this isn't where the story ends. Deep in the mountains of Earth, buried in the rubble of an old laboratory, Dr. Gero opens his eyes. Because he was technically killed by the androids, he was grouped right in with the rest of the revived souls. Trunks' ship is still making its way towards Earth, but in the meantime, Vegeta is doing absolutely everything he can to reclaim his spot at number 1. He locks himself under the extreme weight of the gravity chamber, pushing his limits until he believes he's built up enough strength to finally beat Gohan. He rushes over to his location to test his new power, and Gohan has no issue stepping in for a friendly match. Throughout the fight, Vegeta's frustration peaks as he realizes that he still can't even land a damaging blow on Gohan. It feels like all that brutal training went to waste, and Gohan puts him down much faster than the prince ever anticipated. Once the match ends, Gohan offers a compliment on Vegeta's growth, and instead of storming off in a rage this time, Vegeta actually stops. He asks Gohan how he managed to reach such a ridiculous level of power, and Gohan breaks down the details of his entire journey and training in the other world. We flash back to the afterlife journeys of Gohan and Piccolo. Here in the peace of heaven, the two are reunited, training under open skies as they prepare for the Grand Kai's Otherworld tournament. Gohan, still carrying the rugged look from his years of survival in the future, finally has a lighter heart. Knowing Trunks fulfilled the mission and that Earth was freed from the terror of the androids allows him to truly rest alongside the loved ones who were taken from him when he was just a child. Piccolo finally gets to stand back and see what his student has truly become, and their conversations are filled with a deep sense of pride. When the tournament day arrives, we're thrown straight into the first match, Piccolo versus Nappa. The Grand Kai allowed souls from Hell to enter this bracket, setting the stage for some very familiar rivalries to resurface. Nappa is completely unaware of how much time has passed or how high the ceiling has gotten. He recognizes his old enemy and thinks he has this match in the bag. But the Namekian standing across from him is not the same warrior he crushed on Earth. The in-game dialogue captures this perfectly, as Piccolo treats this entire fight like a performance, completely toying with the Saiyan to showcase the massive difference in their growth. Piccolo even allows Nappa to land that exact same blast that once ended his life during the sacrifice with Gohan, only this time Piccolo stands tall without a single scratch, shocking his former killer before eliminating him in a single blow to get his payback years later. With that match settled, the next match begins, Bardock versus Frieza. For Bardock, this is the long-awaited chance at revenge, a beautiful moment for the Saiyan to stand against the tyrant who destroyed his entire race. But for Frieza, it's just another opportunity to humiliate a low-class Saiyan. Though he finds something unsettlingly familiar about his opponent, he notices the striking resemblance to Goku, only realizing at the last second exactly who Bardock is. From the sidelines, Gohan watches the battle unfold. He stares at Bardock's face, catching the uncanny resemblance to his father, and remembers Frieza mentioning to them on Namek a story of a Saiyan who stood up against them with those exact same features in mind. It hits him all at once. The warrior in front of him is his grandfather. The excitement of that realization is short-lived, however. The match itself is brutally one-sided. Frieza still completely towers over Bardock's power levels, securing an easy victory, but before the tyrant can drag the torture out any further, Gohan steps onto the tournament ground and puts a stop to it. This sets up the next round, Gohan versus Frieza. As Bardock nurses his wounds on the sideline, he watches closely, haunted by lingering visions of his son and trying to piece together the truth of who this boy is. Piccolo, overhearing Bardock whispering Kakarot's name, corrects him. This isn't Kakarot, it's his son Gohan. At first, Frieza doesn't recognize Gohan, assuming he's just another one of Goku's old friends. It isn't until the exchange begins that the realization hits him. Frieza mocks Gohan, sneering at him for trying to play dress up as his father without possessing the actual strength to back it up. But the match proves otherwise. Gohan dominates this entire match, effortlessly tossing the tyrant around the ring. Frieza is quickly pushed into a corner and tries to utilize his full power form, but that's when Gohan reveals the exact nightmare that's haunted Frieza ever since Namek, triggering the Super Saiyan transformation. Overwhelmed by a mix of panic and sloppy mistakes, Frieza is utterly crushed.
I'll defeat you! You're toast!
And Bardock can only watch in awe that his grandson embodies the very legend that he once envisioned, dismantling Frieza like it's child's play. When the match concludes, Bardock and Piccolo step forward together, filled with pride as they acknowledge the incredible warrior Gohan has become. The tournament advances to the long-awaited clash. Master versus student, Piccolo against Gohan. Piccolo's overjoyed knowing that he finally gets to face Gohan at full strength and openly admits just how far his pupil has come. The battle is fierce, a testament to their deep bond and growth. Gohan manages to secure the victory here with a strategic ring out, but that celebration is cut short once again. A dark and overwhelming presence shakes the heavens themselves. From the depths of hell, Janemba is born. The balance of other worlds starts to tremble, and Bardock and Piccolo are dispatched to confront the threat. Descending into the pits of hell, the pair encounters Janemba's initial childlike form. They mistake his strange, playful appearance for weakness, a mistake that costs them dearly. In moments, both warriors are drained of their strength, their energy completely suppressed by the reality-warping beast. As Bardock struggles to remain conscious, Janemba shifts into his next terrifying evolution. Before he can be erased entirely, Gohan intervenes, rescuing his grandfather. He challenges Janemba alone, but the result is no different. The demon's unpredictable power proves to be too much for him, and Gohan too is overwhelmed. As Janemba moves in for the final blow, all hope seems lost, until a familiar figure descends from the skies. Son Goku has arrived. Bardock is stunned, marking the very first time he has laid eyes on his son as a grown warrior. Both Gohan and Piccolo are ecstatic to see him. It seems Goku's been completely buried in tracking down stronger opponents across the afterlife, meaning he hasn't seen his friends or family in a very long time. Goku's attention shifts to Janemba, and he takes charge of the situation, ordering the others to stand back. Unlike his movie counterpart, this version skips straight into Super Saiyan 3 and starts to absolutely pummel the demon. This Goku is as strong as Fusion Reborn Gogeta, and it doesn't take him long before he destroys the demon with an explosive, devastating Dragon Fist.
I told who will! Dragon Fist!
Goku shares a brief, meaningful reunion with his loved ones before setting off once more into the depths of the other world, searching for his next major challenge. Back on Earth, Dr. Gero makes his move. He's already built a new line of androids, 16, 19, and a tall man with long hair whom he calls Android 13. Once they hit the streets, Gero sends them out to begin tearing down the rebuilt cities, but it isn't too long before Piccolo steps in to defend the innocent lives below. Because Gero lacks updated data on the heroes, he underestimates just how powerful they become in the afterlife. Piccolo has been waiting a long time to exact his revenge on the Doctor, and Android 19 is put down almost instantly. Seeing the destruction of his fallen android, Android 16 asks if Goku is present on the planet. When Piccolo informs him that Goku isn't there, 16 abandons his original directive, letting his new programming take over as he charges directly at Piccolo. But thanks to all that rigorous training Piccolo endured in heaven, even Android 16 can't compete with his current level. This sends Dr. Gero into a panic, worrying that his grand plan might be cut short before it truly began. Dr. Gero demands that Android 13 rush into the battle, but the android ignores the order. Instead, Gero attempts to take on Piccolo himself, and halfway through that match he realizes he's fighting in an uphill battle. He decides his best option here is to retreat, but Piccolo isn't going to give him the chance to escape.
Sorry to make you wait. Take this! Don't you know me?
Desperate, he turns to Android 13, ordering him to step in and take Piccolo down. Across the planet, Gohan and Vegeta both notice the sudden spike in Piccolo's power. Sensing that something is going sideways, they take flight and speed towards West City to assist. Android 13 gives Piccolo much more trouble than anticipated, forcing the Namekian to burn through his stamina just dodging attacks. As 13 begins to toy with his opponent and things look grim, Gohan drops from the sky, intercepting a fatal blast just in time to save his mentor. Gohan tells Vegeta to get Piccolo out of the blast zone before rushing directly in to fight against the new mechanical threat. Gohan puts up an incredible fight, making victory look imminent. Backed completely into a corner, Android 13 realizes he has only one option left. He turns on his own creator, ending Dr. Gero's life on the spot, and absorbs the components of the fallen androids in his own system. This new fusion upgrade boosts his strength leagues beyond anything Gohan ever thought possible.
Gotta admit, you're good.
The battle turns brutal. Android 13 begins deliberately targeting the civilians below, forcing Gohan to drop his guard to protect them, giving the android the perfect opening to land a devastating sneak attack. Gohan takes a massive ki blast head on and crashes to the ground, a familiar dread washing over him as he faces what feels like another defeat at the hands of the androids. Vegeta rushes over to Gohan, and Gohan tells him that he already possesses the strength to defeat the android. He explains that Vegeta can ascend and win, and that he must defend the planet Trunks fought so hard to protect. Flooded with emotions, Vegeta steps up and shatters his limits once again, breaking through into Super Saiyan 2. He begins to pulverize the android, venting every single ounce of his built-up frustration through this explosive new power. As the dust settles, it's clear that Vegeta's the one that won the battle, putting an end to the androids once and for all. Gohan stands amazed by Vegeta's new power, while Piccolo makes a comment that the prince is right back to his usual cocky self. As everyone cheers for the Prince of Saiyans reclaiming his spot on the top, Vegeta acknowledges his rival's son, telling Gohan he did a good job and proved he's plenty strong. He reminds Gohan that there are other powerful fighters out there besides Kakarot. With peace restored, Gohan returns to his training with Piccolo, staying ready for whatever threat might arise next. And let's be honest here, it's Dragon Ball, so someone new is always right around the corner. The story opens up on New Namek years in the past. Words of the Frieza Force collapse finally reach Cooler, who uses Purunga to resurrect Frieza, King Cold, and the entire military might. Cooler's motivation isn't brotherly love. He views Frieza's previous failures as a stain on the family lineage and believes Frieza is no longer fit to lead. Frieza naturally refuses to yield his authority to his older brother, leading to an immediate power struggle. In his first form, Frieza is barely making an impact. King Cold attempts to interject and calm the situation, but Frieza's ego is too far gone to listen. Cold eventually relents, reminding Frieza that they only breathe because of Cooler's plan, yet he allows the duel to continue. As Frieza realizes his base power isn't enough, he cycles through his transformations. He enters his second form, but Cooler continues to berate him, specifically mocking his loss to a mere Saiyan. Those words trigger a visceral reaction. Frieza begins to spiral through memories of his defeat at the hands of Trunks and the humiliation on Namek by Goku. Rage fuels a shift into his third form. Even then, the gap in power remains wide, and the resulting clash causes the very foundation of New Namek to tremble. While the Frieza Force soldiers watch in a mix of awe and terror, Captain Ginyu begs King Cold to intervene, but Cold refuses. He admits to a change of heart, acknowledging that Cooler has seemingly been the superior son all along, and now he wants to see if Frieza has any answer for that strength. Frieza eventually reaches his final form, which finally puts the two on equal footing. As they trade blows, Frieza questions why Cooler hasn't utilized his next transformation. It's revealed here that Cooler has yet to master that ascended state. The true peak of Cold Clan's power remains just out of his reach. With Cooler starting to tire, Frieza seizes the opening, secures the win, and effectively absorbs Cooler forces into his own. Despite this consolidation of power, Frieza is pragmatic. He knows that even with their combined strength, they aren't a threat to the Saiyans on Earth yet. If they want Goku to pay, they have to commit to the one thing they've always looked down upon: training. The Frieza Force retreats into the shadows, waiting for a day that they are truly ready to strike. While it isn't explicitly stated why the new Namekians were spared, we can assume a calculated move on Frieza's part. He's learned the hard way that the Dragon Balls are useless if the Namekians are dead, so keeping them alive and under a lingering shadow serves as a strategic insurance policy for the future. Had Dende or Elder Mori tipped Goku off during his search for a new Guardian, the news likely would have taken a backseat to the more immediate threat of Cell. Frieza wasn't a problem anymore. He was a ghost in the background. We now fast forward several years to Earth, where the Z Warriors are holding a tournament-style training session to sharpen their own skills. The brackets feel like a callback to the 22nd World Tournament, with the old warriors testing one another once again. Krillin secures a win over Chaozu, while Tien manages to take down Yamcha, though there's a noticeable edge to Tien's composure that suggests that he isn't just here for a friendly sparring match. As Krillin and Tien prepare their own bout, Gohan finally arrives, offering the usual apologies for his lateness. Between his studies and life with Videl and Pan, his training has clearly taken a back seat. The anticipated match between the two humans quickly shifts into a 2-on-1 ambush as they force Gohan into the ring. They aren't interested in an excuse, they want to see if the scholar still has the warrior spirit. Tien takes the lead of the battle, lecturing Gohan on the dangers of complacency. Gohan's defense is one we've heard before. With Goku and Vegeta on Earth as the strongest in the universe, the world is safe. He believes he can rely on them to carry that burden. But mid-sentence, he's blindsided by Krillin. Krillin begins to actually corner him, acknowledging that after years of consistent effort, he's reached a level where he can legitimately push a half Saiyan who has let his guard down. On the sidelines, Yamcha is forced to confront a harsh reality. Watching Krillin and Tien, he realizes the gap between them has widened to a point that feels almost insurmountable. Part of him is tempted to settle into that complacency, yet his martial artist spirit still flickers, pushing him towards a growth he isn't sure he can achieve. The sparring match eventually winds down with Gohan and Krillin both exhausted, and the group begins to disperse. Though they notice Yamcha's visible frustration, the Z Warriors head their separate ways, leaving him to his own thoughts. Unbeknownst to all of them, the Frieza Force has finally made a planet fall. By suppressing their presence and avoiding detection, they manage to slip past Earth's defenses. Frieza wastes no time deploying his soldiers across the globe with a singular mission: locate Goku and dismantle his circle of friends. Yamcha's walk home is cut short when he's intercepted by a squad of soldiers. These grunts have clearly put in the work during their time away, showing a level of coordination and strength that forces Yamcha to actually exert himself. He manages to clear out the initial wave, but the pressure mounts when Kui steps out from the shadows. The two engage in a grueling fight, with Kui leaning heavily on underhanded tactics to keep Yamcha off balance. From a distance, Dodoria and Zarbon observe the skirmish. Frieza deployed them as a reconnaissance with a hidden directive to intervene if Kui fails too close to the deal. The energy from the fight eventually catches Piccolo's attention. He senses a power level high enough to pose a legitimate threat to Yamcha and begins moving towards the source to see exactly what has landed on Earth. In the middle of the struggle, Yamcha finds himself questioning how a former underling could possess this much power. Kui uses the opportunity to mock him, claiming Yamcha's inherent weakness is his own undoing. Yamcha pulls himself out from the debris, but his perspective on his own limitations has shifted. He acknowledges that while he might be outclassed by the elite, his capacity for growth hasn't hit his peak yet. Channeling that new resolve, he charges a spirit ball and leans back into his roots as the Desert Bandit.
I'm gonna wrap this up. Spirit ball.
The attack connects, taking Kui out of the equation, but the effort leaves Yamcha completely drained. As he struggles to stay upright, Zarbon blindsides him, sending him crashing into the dirt. In a moment of desperation, Yamcha mutters a wish for Goku's presence, which immediately shifts Zarbon's focus. Recognizing a potential lead, Zarbon begins to interrogate Yamcha for intelligence on the Saiyan's whereabouts. Dodoria arrives shortly after. His patience is thin, and his intent purely lethal, nearly jeopardizing the interrogation before Zarbon can reel him in. Just as the situation turns dire, Piccolo descends from the sky to intervene. The two soldiers are caught off guard by the sight of a Namekian on Earth, but the confusion quickly turns to arrogance. Dodoria steps forward, demanding that Zarbon stays out of the battle so he can dismantle the Slugman himself. The gap in power becomes apparent the moment that they clash. Piccolo stands his ground with a level of strength that feels completely alien to these invaders. Dodoria's most aggressive strikes fail to leave a mark, and a realization that sends a wave of genuine concern through Zarbon. He's left watching from the sidelines, unable to reconcile the legend of the Namekian race with the overwhelming force Piccolo is currently displaying. Piccolo spends the match baiting Dodoria, exploiting his hot-headed nature to expose fatal openings. Zarbon recognizes immediately from the sideline what Piccolo is doing, and attempts to shout a warning, but Dodoria is already too far gone. Consumed by blind rage that renders him deaf to strategy, realizing his teammate is beyond saving, Zarbon makes the cold decision to abandon the field, choosing to report back to Frieza rather than join Dodoria in an inevitable demise. Left to face Piccolo alone, Dodoria's lack of composure becomes his undoing. Piccolo effectively dismantles the warrior, eventually offering a final chance to retreat. It's a hollow gesture for someone like Dodoria, who responds by charging headlong into his own end. Piccolo stops him mid-strike with a Hellzone grenade, securing a victory that feels like a long overdue justice for the Namekian lives Dodoria took all those years ago.
You're less than dirt. Be gone! Hellzone grenade!
As Zarbon retreats, he tracks the battle through his scouter, watching in silence as Dodoria's power signature drops to 0. The realization settles in. The defenders of the planet have reached a level of strength the Frieza Force clearly didn't anticipate. The creator of this scenario deserves a lot of credit for their writing here. They found the right dialogue to express this specific vision, which is a genuine achievement considering the limitations on the custom battle interface. The time and effort required to map out a narrative this cohesive with the game's tools is beyond impressive. Zarbon reports the findings to Frieza, and the news that the Saiyans are nowhere to be found is met with immediate fury. They traveled across the galaxy only to find the primary target missing. Cooler suggests that if a Namekian is capable of this much damage, there are clearly other warriors on Earth worth testing their strength against. Frieza begins to move towards Piccolo's location, but Zarbon intervenes, insisting on handling the Namekian himself to keep the Emperor's hands clean. King Cold praises Cooler for his progress, specifically noting his mastery over the new transformation. Frieza eavesdrops on this conversation. His suspicion of his brother is only growing. He knows Cooler is waiting for any opening to seize control of the Frieza Force. Though the dialogue hits that Frieza has been hiding a massive power jump of his own. Zarbon returns to the battlefield, banking on the fact that Piccolo is already drained from the previous waves of soldiers. He sees this as a chance to finally secure his spot as Frieza's true right hand. The exhaustion is visible on Piccolo, yet he refuses to buckle under the pressure of Zarbon. Every blast Zarbon throws is met with stubborn resilience that eventually forces the general to abandon his refined appearance and transform into that monster-like form. And that power-up is exactly what he needs as Zarbon begins to dominate the battle. Piccolo manages a few desperate counters fueled by pure determination, but the raw power gap is becoming too wide to bridge. Executing a last-ditch effort, Piccolo uses an afterimage to catch Zarbon off guard, following up with a special beam cannon. Thinking the threat is neutralized, he turns to check on Yamcha, only to be blindsided by a surviving Zarbon. Before a victor is decided, the scene cuts to East City, where Frieza, Cooler, and King Cold have made their grand entrance. The Ginyu Force begins scanning for their highest power levels on the planet, quickly pinning down Tien and Chaozu. The former Crane School students put up a valiant effort, but they are quickly outmatched by the Ginyu elites. From a vantage point overlooking the chaos, Frieza watches as his army begins to dismantle the city. He deploys Goldo and Raccoon to track the next set of defenders, while Ginyu begins a hunt of his own. A separate, more calculated plan is clearly starting to take shape. The scene shifts as Birder and Jeice coordinate a devastating team attack, leaving Chaozu unconscious and out of the fight. Driven by desperation, Tien retaliates with a Neo Tri-Beam barrage, but the sheer power gap renders that effort useless. He's beaten down alongside his comrade and left in the ruins of the city. As the Ginyu Force members move on, Cooler's scouter picks up a massive signature nearby, a power level significant enough to finally pique his interest. Elsewhere, the focus shifts to Goten, Trunks, Krillin, Bulma, and Chi-Chi. While the young Saiyan handles waves of grunts, Goldo emerges from the shadows, specifically targeting Krillin. He's looking for a measure of revenge for his humiliation on Namek years ago. The Z-Warriors quickly realize that while Goldo lacks raw physical strength, his time-freezing ability makes the fight a matter of strategy rather than force. The battle is a frustrating exchange of Krillin's attempts to fight smarter, while Goldo repeatedly stalls the flow of time. Just as Goldo prepares to impale Krillin with a massive spike, Android 18 intervenes. Her arrival shifts that whole battle instantly. Furious at the near death of her husband, she joins Krillin to kill Goldo, ultimately sealing the win with a Destructo Disc. The victory is cut short by the arrival of Captain Ginyu. While his pose remains as eccentric as ever, his power is undeniable. Neither Krillin nor 18 can leave a scratch on him. Ginyu's true motive surfaces. He's hunting for a powerful new host, but mid-fight his scouter detects an even more impressive Saiyan signature elsewhere. He abandons the battle, leaving Jeice and Birder to finish the job. Birder singles out Goten, recognizing the resemblance to Goku, while Jeice takes on young Trunks. Two warriors find themselves struggling under the pressure. Jeice begins to belittle them, but Trunks remains defiant, warning that his father Vegeta will be their undoing. Realizing they need a massive jump in power, the two decide to fuse. The appearance of Gotenks completely flips the battle in their favor. Both Jeice and Birder are suddenly outclassed, and the arrogance they arrived with is replaced by a genuine fear. After Birder falls, Gotenks charges a final beam and wipes out the remaining Ginyu Force members. After checking on their family, Gotenks senses a massive surge of ki in the distance, one they can't afford to ignore, and they head off to intercept it. We now check in on Gohan and Buu as they're holding back waves of enemies protecting Mr. Satan and Videl. Cooler eventually zeroes in on the massive energy signature he's been tracking, recognizing Majin Buu immediately. Sensing a worthy test for his new power, he challenges the pink monster. Gohan attempts to intervene, but Buu insists on handling it alone, allowing Gohan to move Hercule and Videl to safety. The fight starts poorly for Buu. who takes a direct hit from a massive death ball. Cooler initially believes the battle is over, but he's forced into a state of confusion when Boo simply regenerates. An explosive wave from Boo finally pushes Cooler to stop holding back, triggering his perfected 5th transformation.
Let the bloodbath commence.
In this ascended form, Cooler begins to completely outclass Majin Buu. Hercule tries to rush back to his friend's aid, but he's quickly taken aback as Boo's stamina begins to fail, leading to his eventual defeat at Cooler's hands. Elsewhere, Gohan continues to clear out grunts, but the fatigue starts to settle in. He begins to regret his lack of consistent training just as he senses Cooler's ki building to a level capable of erasing Buu entirely. Before he can rush to help, he's intercepted by Raccoon. The Brute remembers Gohan from the encounter on Namek and begins to toy with him. Gohan taps back into Super Saiyan form to find his footing, but his dwindling energy reserves leave him vulnerable. Just as Raccoon prepares to finish the job, Piccolo enters the battle, dragging a defeated Zarbon along with him. Piccolo provides that necessary push, reminding Gohan of what he's fighting to protect. That encouragement triggers Gohan's transition into Super Saiyan 2, allowing him to vaporize Raccoon with a full power Kamehameha.
I'll give you a fight.
During the midst of the chaos, Zarbon manages to retreat towards Frieza, but Captain Ginyu arrives on the scene. He recognizes Gohan's energy as the peak signature he felt earlier. The ensuing battle is a high-stakes game of evasion, while Ginyu consistently attempts to land a body change. That relentless pace wears Ginyu down, giving Piccolo the opportunity to drive a special beam cannon through him. While the group believes the threat is neutralized, Ginyu is merely playing dead, waiting for his moment to strike. This brief respite is broken when Videl arrives with the news of Buu's defeat. Before Gohan and Piccolo can mobilize, Frieza descends from the sky, visibly impressed that the defenders of Earth managed to wipe out the Ginyu Force. The confrontation with the Tyrant reaches a boiling point as Frieza demands Goku's location. When Gohan refuses to yield, Frieza wastes no time shifting into his second form to settle an old score with Piccolo. Gohan and Piccolo coordinate their movements, tag teaming the Emperor in a desperate defensive effort, but the gap in power remains too far wide. Frieza eventually finds a devastating opening, landing a blow so severe that Gohan briefly fears his mentor has been killed. The sight of Piccolo falling triggers a surge of rage, pushing Gohan into Super Saiyan 2 again. Frieza matches that escalation by entering his third form, and the two begin to trade massive blows. In a cruel bid to break Gohan's spirit, Frieza aims a death beam at Videl on the sidelines. Gohan intercepts the attack, taking the hit directly, but he remains standing. He yells at Videl to take the wounded Piccolo and retreat, his anger finally bridging the gap that he needs to get into his ultimate form. In this state, Gohan begins to dominate the battleground, forcing a concerned Frieza to cycle into his final form. While Gohan does initially hold his own, the toll of the day's consistent battles begin to drain on his stamina. His movements grow sluggish, allowing Frieza to reclaim the advantage with a series of punishing strikes. In his weakest moment, Gohan reflects on his childhood training and the responsibility his father placed on him to protect the Earth. Ignited by that legacy, he pours the last of his energy into a final desperate assault. As the dust settles, Frieza is nowhere to be seen. However, the moment Gohan lowers his guard, Frieza reappears unscathed and ready to retaliate. He then begins to punish Gohan, dragging him throughout the city and prolonging the torture to draw out Goku. Meanwhile, at the site of Majin Buu's defeat, Gotenks arrives just in time to intercept Cooler's finishing blow. The fusion manages to keep Cooler at bay until the timer abruptly runs out, leaving the boys vulnerable. Before Cooler can strike, Tien, Chaozu, Krillin, and Android 18 arrive to stall for time. The segment of the battle highlight a shift in strategy. Instead of adhering to a typical one-on-one martial arts conduct, the Z-Warriors choose to jump the intruder to protect their world. Something they should be doing more of, actually. Chaozu attempts a self-destruct maneuver to take down the weakened Cooler, but the effort fails to finish the job. Fortunately, Buu is able to intervene and heal the small warrior before he's lost. The team gives everything they have, but Cooler's mastery of this new form grows with every single battle. One by one, the defenders are neutralized until only Hercule is left standing in the middle of the city. Just as Cooler prepares to eliminate the champ, Gotenks returns to the battlefield in Super Saiyan 3. But even with that massive power boost, the fusion is eventually overwhelmed. Cooler stands victorious in the center of the city, with the Earth's warriors left unconscious at his feet. The story shifts to Beerus' planet, where Goku and Vegeta are deep into a sparring session under the watchful eyes of Whis and the God of Destruction. After Goku secures a win in the first round, he begins to needle Vegeta, suggesting the prince is falling behind. The jab at his pride works, pushing Vegeta to escalate the fight. Their clash eventually draws Beerus into the battle, prompting the two Saiyans to enter Super Saiyan God to tag team him. Just as they prepare a massive combined assault, Whis intervenes, informing them of an urgent SOS from Bulma. Frieza has returned and Earth is under siege. Goku and Vegeta touch down in the ruins of the city, immediately drawing the attention of King Cold. He notes Vegeta's striking resemblance to his father while expressing genuine confusion at how these two warriors appeared on the planet instantly. Vegeta wastes no time dismissing the invaders as trash and sending Goku ahead to locate the rest of the Z-Warriors while he handles the arrival party. He begins cutting through waves of grunts effortlessly, drawing Zarbon back into the fight. Seeking revenge for his past defeat, Zarbon throws everything he has at the prince, but the gap in power is staggering.
Vegeta acknowledges Zarbon's growth, but ultimately erases him from the world of the living. Witnessing this, King Cold realizes his own strength is no longer a factor. He attempts to manipulate Vegeta, offering him a high-ranking seat in the Empire under his tutelage. Vegeta's response is a silent transformation into Super Saiyan, followed by the total obliteration of King Cold. Goku arrives just in time to intercept a fatal blow meant for Gohan, finally standing face to face with Frieza. Elsewhere, Vegeta drops in to save Mr. Satan from Cooler's finishing strike. After a brief moment to praise Trunks for his effort, Vegeta locks eyes with Cooler, who mocks the prince for not appearing much stronger than his son. Back at Goku's position, Captain Ginyu attempts to capitalize on the chaos. Frieza fakes exhaustion, creating an opening for Ginyu to launch a body change beam at Goku. Goku narrowly evading the technique and manages to erase Ginyu with a Kamehameha before the captain can interfere any further. The interruption gives Frieza the chance to land a sneak attack, forcing both him and Goku to transform. As they trade blows, the familiar side of the Super Saiyan awakens a dormant fear in Frieza, echoing that legendary battle on planet Namek. The earth-shaking duel is interrupted when Vegeta and Cooler crash into the battlefield. Goku is momentarily confused by the presence of a second Frieza lookalike, while Frieza's arrogance leads him to underestimate the prince. This friction causes the Saiyans to swap opponents. Vegeta looks to settle his score, while Cooler seeks to redeem the clan's honor by killing the man who defeated his brother. Frieza is visibly infuriated to learn that Vegeta has also mastered the Super Saiyan transformation. Though Cooler struggles against Goku, it's clear that neither Saiyan is fighting at full capacity just yet. Recognizing that the city can't withstand much more of the displacement of energy, they request a change in scenery. The brothers oblige, setting the stage for the final act of the story. Vegeta's focus shifts entirely to Cooler, driven by a need to settle the debt for the attack on Trunks. Before the fighting can resume, the arrival of Beerus and Whis sends a wave of genuine terror through Frieza. His fear only deepens when he realizes these cosmic entities have been personally overseeing the training of his Saiyan rivals. While the God of Destruction and his attendant casually scout for a snack, Bulma's sharp dismissal of their demands catches Cooler's attention. Intrigued by a woman capable of standing her ground against such power, Cooler attempts to recruit her, a move that only serves to ignite Vegeta's fury. The match between Super Saiyan Vegeta and Cooler's fifth form begins with a tyrant holding a surprising advantage. Cooler's mastery of this transformation has progressed to where even Vegeta's god form struggles to maintain an upper hand. After taking a significant hit, Vegeta stops holding back and erupts into Super Saiyan Blue. Frieza watches from the sidelines, realizing with growing dread that his brother is now facing a lethal gap in power. The two engage in a neck-and-neck struggle that pushes Vegeta to his physical limits. Just as his energy begins to waver, he shatters his ceiling once more, evolving his blue form to a new peak. He unleashes a super explosive wave that completely overwhelms Cooler, erasing him from existence and sending him to the other world in an instant.
Afraid you're not going to survive this.
Sensing his brother's defeat, Frieza seized a moment of vulnerability to land a cheap shot on the exhausted Vegeta, prompting Goku to step in for the final round. Goku cycles through his Super Saiyan forms, but Frieza remains unmoved until Goku taps into his god power. The sight of the divine key puts a fear of loss back into the tyrant, who realizes that he must reveal his own trump card to stay in the fight. Frieza now ascends into his golden form, creating a wall of power that Goku initially can't bypass. The battle forces Goku to utilize Super Saiyan Blue, and the two trade blows at a high-speed exchange that taxes their stamina. As Goku's energy reserves begin to drop, he reveals one final trick.
Break through the limit.
He channels the multiplier into a massive Kamehameha that engulfs Frieza, seemingly ending the threat. The wasteland falls silent, but as the group prepare to depart, Goku senses a lingering spark of Frieza's ki. Recognizing the tyrant is already plotting a desperate counterstrike, Goku quickly gathers a spirit bomb and launches it, putting the space tyrant down for good. The epilogue confirms that the Dragon Balls were gathered to undo the destruction and revive those lost in the crossfire, bringing the reimagined Resurrection F to a close.